Just a couple of guys, a couple microphones, and a heck of a lot of know. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
What they say, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Football on the Know. I am Jim McPhee, alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
What's going on, Autos? Welcome back for another edition of Football on the Know show. And guess what? It's done. The regular season after this weekend is completed. Week 18. Sadly enough for all us football fans out there, but you can always come stop in here Wednesday nights, and we can talk football all year long. So the party doesn't stop here. We're going to keep this thing rolling.
We're here all
And
year.
you can do that by heading over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, let you guys know when we go live. And, of course, you can follow us anywhere you get your podcasts. Let's go.
Boom. Yeah, absolutely, Joe. And, hey, it's that time of the year, too, where the Pro Football Hall of Fame will select their finalists now coming up, and we'll learn about that.
Right.
Yeah, like
they got a tough job.
They
got a tough job.
Yeah, absolutely. They do. It's tough. It gets tougher and tougher, too, because even they get into the era of players that we really know, too, and there's a lot of great talent that goes along with that.
Right.
But yeah, they'll announce finally everybody the honors meetings or before the Super Bowl and stuff. So Super Bowl week. So time's
February
ticking
8th.
down. Yep, absolutely. So it's going to be interesting here, Joe. So they had narrowed it down to 15. It started at 129, Joe. And
I don't know how they do it, honestly.
That's crazy.
And
it's got to be easy as you go. From the first cut from even like 129 down to 38 or whatever it ends up being like by November. I mean, that had to be kind of easy. It's like cutting a roster for a team.
Man.
Just bang, 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 I guess. But
there's so many great players. It's amazing that they're able to get. I know it's a must, but it's amazing that they get to this step here with 15 members as a finalist. Like, it's crazy to me.
Right, and for me, it's interesting to see what first time.
First
nominees
time. Nominees
are there for the finalists, and we have a few this year so far. I think it's was it Dwight Freeney and Darrell Revis and Joe Thomas are one of it's their first year here, and so I mean it's pretty crazy here for these guys moving forward. Or Devin Hester, it was just last year. All right, so I mean it's crazy. Joe, it's tough. What we're going to do now here for this show, too, is we're going to go over, look at some of the finalists here, and we're going to try and narrow it down to our 5, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, Joe, we're going to look over them, and I guess let's go over, Jared Allen first. Again,
Hall of Fame committee, take notes. This is how you do it.
Most of them, remember him as, I think I might have even picked him on last year's, for me, Jared Allen.
I think so.
Most people remember him as, one of the Vikings and stuff, but he's played with a few different teams here, surprisingly enough, more than I can even count here sometimes. But yeah, some of his highlights, again, led the NFL twice in sacks in 2007, 2011. 2007 Kansas City Chiefs team MVP too as well. Named to the Hall of Fame or the Pro Bowl many times in 2008, 2010, and 2012 to 2013. We remember him as a big, sack specialist, run stopper and stuff, Joe, get in the backfield all the time. A lot of these younger audiences probably don't know Jared Allen. You got to see him so much. They only know him as maybe a chef, putting out the chef books and things like that. But Jared Allen, what do you think so far about Jared Allen?
Well, Jared Allen's just an amazing player. Like, he's an amazing human being, too. Like, I feel like that's another thing, too, that's an element of the finalists that when it gets real tough, I feel like that's also a part of it where this committee comes to, they put their minds together and they're trying to figure out, well, who gets put ahead of who, because these players are great as they are. But now comes into the fact of like, well, how good were they with the media? It is weird as that sounds, that is a part of it. So for Jared Allen, like, he was loved from everybody. Like, he just had a great personality, was super funny. Like, he was great in the locker room with his teammates, outside, and was just a great human being. So that on top of being just a phenomenal player and a dominating pass rusher of a defensive end, this guy did everything extremely well. He played most of his career with the Chiefs, and he just wreaked havoc in the backfield. Like you see all these big-time pass rushers today, that's what Jared Allen was. He was that guy. So he was always in the backfield, whether it be stopping the run, whether it be getting to the passer, and just racked up sacks. So Jared Allen, rightfully so, is definitely deserving of being in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely, absolutely. Here we go. Here's the full list of everybody. So if you guys want to take a look at it here. And again, like you said, there he is with the Chiefs, the Vikings, the Bears, the Panthers towards the tail end of his career. And I'll bring up offensive tackle Willie Anderson, too. Played with the Bengals first for the beginning of his career in 1996, drafted by the Bengals. And then 2008 with the Ravens here, to his last year of his career here. Tackles now, again, it's kind of funny. Not so many picked into the Hall of Fame. It takes really a tough scenario to get them in there. I mean, they've really been fighting about some of these last. I think did Baselli just finally make it in, offensive lineman in the Hall of Fame like last year after he was multiple times there as a finalist and getting up there. So it's tough for some of these guys to get in there.
And that vote I actually disagreed with. The guy just didn't have enough body of work to justify putting him into the Hall of Fame, the great of the greats. Short amount of time in his career, only played a handful of years, and that was it. And granted, I get it. He had a terrible back injury, and that's kind of what derailed the rest of his career. But if you're not able to put a long and steady body of work at a high level for most of your career, then how can you justify putting him into the Hall of Fame? So I disagreed with that vote in for Tony Baselli. Yes, when he was healthy, he was dominant. If he could continue that for 8 years, 10, 12 years, like now you're saying, okay, shoo-in. You can't argue that. But the fact of the matter is that he had such a short career, for me, is what the issue was when he got elected.
All right, so Willie Anderson again right now, drafted in the first round, 10th overall in 1996 by the Bengals. Named a 1996 All-Rookie team. Possessed, size, the talent in, at tackle, and also speed, strength, humility, allowing him to dominate at that position right there for him, Joe. Known as a strong run blocker also for them. He was right there to help Corey Dillon too. Blocked for 9 1,000 yards rushers too. And then Corey Dillon naming one of them as well. So strong, tough offensive lineman here, all pro a few different times, 2004 through 2006 and 2003 as well. Again, what do you think about Willie Anderson here in for an offensive tackle here to try and make his shot here? He's been eligible for 10 years, his second time as a finalist.
Well, he's definitely deserving of being this far. Willie Anderson, to me, was one of those dominating offensive tackles. Obviously, like when you look at his career, like it was pretty much with the Bengals and that was it. His 1 year with the Ravens was kind of like his last hurrah. Tried to stay into the game, but was amazing. He was a great pass protector. He was just a bull of a run blocker, and it showed up on game day. So for Willie Anderson, he does deserve to be, I think, in the Hall of Fame. But what makes it very, very difficult for a lot of these offensive linemen is that when you start putting in receivers, like the skill positions, the flashy type of positions where you can rack up stats and everything. For offensive linemen, though, unfortunately, they could skew the stats to where offensive linemen could compile some kind of stats like pancake blocks, false starts. You could start utilizing things like that where well, how many false starts penalties have you gotten, versus the rest of the offensive linemen in the league, and pancake blocks and sacks given up or just pressures in general. So there can be stats implemented to help kind of lift up these offensive linemen, but until they change that to where we can actually look at an offensive line and be like, oh crap, look at this guy. This guy didn't allow sacks in one whole year this season, and then in 2013 he only allowed one. That way we can reflect and look at some of the offensive lineman stats to kind of push them up and give them the rightful respect that they deserve.
Yeah, and you talk about some of those stats too. I mean, I think some of that's going to change with whatever position that's going into in consideration for the Hall of Fame. I mean, look at what they do and they track now for quarterbacks even too, and how what they're throwing in. Was there under play action or is it going to be what down and things scheme things and where they excel in all these different analytics that they go by. I wouldn't be surprised that when they go to break it down and they bring that up, when it's the conversation for them, and their percentage wise and what they do in what scenarios, on throwing on the run, scrambling yards on top of throwing yards combined too, especially with running backs too. I mean, when you look at like a Christian McCaffrey that will probably be here at this scenario too.
Most likely, yep.
You know what I mean? You're going to look at him. You're going to look at his body of work altogether, not only running, but it also, completing, catches and receiving.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the thing.
And that's what you said, even with pancakes and things like that, I think they'll find different scenarios to where, look at what the tush push has been able to do even this season, with Philadelphia. How successful were they on fourth down conversions in here with this guy here at center or whatever, you know what I mean? Fourth and short, that's what I'm saying. That might even be an issue here or a thing that they look at.
And the other thing, too, is basically there's stats for every other position, but offensive lineman there isn't. There's not enough created to where you can, have a catalog for each player and be like, oh, well, he was pretty dominant. But this guy, he was okay. But that way you can justify some of these offensive linemen that are getting put in. And you can have some background work and say, hey, this is why we put him into the Hall. This is why he was a finalist. And then it kind of reaffirms your argument when they get to this stage.
Mm-hmm. All right, next up we got Rondé Barber, Joe. Most people remember him as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. So I'd say a lot more successful career than Tiki Barber, too. His brother, his twin, you know what I mean? I remember Tiki just because I'm a Giants fan and things like that, but Rondé was a star, and he stayed in this league a lot longer than his brother. He's now on his 6th year of eligibility and his 3rd time a finalist. And I think, again, his stats speak for himself. Kind of that quiet leader and really stat guy here for a franchise. He has many franchise records here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And not only that, but also he's got total 14 defensive and special teams touchdowns. I think there was one also stat that he had twice intercepted 3 passes in a game and 6 times forced fumble, at least 2 turnovers in a game too as well. So multiple turnovers leading into points multiple times. Not just in a game, but multiple times in a game, multiple games. I mean, so this guy overall, not your lockdown corner, but solid all around.
Well, the thing was that worked out great for Rondé is that he was blessed with entering Monte Kiffin's defense in Tampa Bay, where Monte Kiffin developed this whole new kind of philosophy behind the cover 2. You know what I mean? The cover 3 zone defenses. He was such a great defensive coordinator when he was coaching that not only did he implement those his specialty with those formations, but also what made him very special as a coach is that not only was he would always get along with his players, but also the X's and O's behind it. He would camouflage those looks, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, that's not traditional cover 2, you know what I mean? And you ended up getting picked off, and that's where Rondé, guys like Rondé Barber could feed off of that. John Lynch was also part of that defense as a safety. So, and there was a lot of them, Derek Brooks, what have you. They had a really good defense, but man, did they really, they fully understood what he was trying to do as a D coordinator, and then they just, after learning how they were going to play, Rondé Barber just excelled as a corner. Yes, you're right. Not a traditional shutdown corner where he can play man-to-man or he can switch off and play zone and do everything extremely well and just be all over you. But with this defense and his skill set together and his understanding of it, that's what made him fly off the boards and really start to become a presence on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, one more thing, just for him alone, he is the only NFL all-time leader in sacks for a cornerback. And then also the only player in NFL history with at least 45 interceptions and 25 sacks. So well-balanced, not only just with getting the interceptions, but used as a blitzer and to get sacks on the quarterback as well.
Yeah,
know,
those
like we were
zone
saying,
those
well
zone
balanced.
blitzes and stuff that Monty Kiffin would draw up, it would just allow guys to come free right off the edge.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so next up we've got Dwight Freeney. Again, like I said, he is his first time for eligibility and now first time finalist here. Most people probably remember him with the Colts, but played with a few more teams than I can even recall. You know, Joe, I remember him leaving for a little bit, but some of the teams I didn't even remember him really playing for. You know,
And there was
kinda
a couple of
surprised it
teams
was a head
where
scratcher here, but-
couple of teams he played for at the tail end of his career where it was the same year.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
Seattle
that's
Seahawks
yes.
and the Detroit Lions,
yes.
in 2017. He
I think
would
that's
play
where it
on
was
both.
fuzzy for me. You
And
know what I mean?
honestly, I don't even remember him wearing a uniform
Yeah.
for those teams.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yeah, me neither. Like I remember him with the Falcons, you know, and the
yes, I
Cardinals
do.
a little bit.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Yep,
Yeah,
Cardinals definitely.
Yep. But,
Chargers, yep. You know?
again, really known for like he had his own move. That spin move
Spin
was
move
his
was
deal.
specialty, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And his counterpart, you know, on the other defensive side of the line was nominated, you know, as a finalist last year too. And they were the two team, you know, the two guys on each end, you know, but they had their own different styles too. The other would dig deep, get that work, that angle, but this guy just had that quickness and just that quick spin move and get around people. And he was a threat right there to get into the backfield. On the
Mind you,
quarterback.
too, Dwight Freeney slid in the draft. Like, he wasn't a high-end pick because people looked at his stature. He was a very short defensive end. He was stocky, but he was very short, and people kind of frowned upon those measurables for that position, you know, back in the 80s when he got drafted. So when Dwight Freeney showed up on game day, and everyone's like, this little guy, look at this short guy. I got this guy blocked, no problem. And he would just make you hard step outside and spin. He was so fast at it too. That's what made him so, you know, impossible to block at times, is that he was so quick that he'd make you hard step outside and then in a blink of an eye spins back in, and he's just coming free right at your quarterback. So Dwight Freeney had an uncanny ability of quickness, and that spin move really threw a lot of tackles for a loop. And he was able to just wreak havoc all the time. Not to mention, Freeney had a very, very quick first step. He was fast too. He had like that stocky size, but he had more strength than you when you looked at the guy and you're like, I'll be able to handle him. But he was stronger than you thought. So Dwight Freeney was one of those unpredictable type of DNs, a short in stature type of guy, but man, really packed a punch when it came to at the line of scrimmage.
Yep, absolutely, Joe. Absolutely. So moving on, we've got Devin Hester here now. You know, the punt returner, kick returner / wide receiver. Really kind of started out as the kick returner, punt returner, was really more well known and famous for that. And then converted to wide receiver. And then it was just kind of, you know what I mean? Just it was kind of funny because he couldn't really get that down, you know, the whole wide receiver thing. It was just like when he got the ball, though, he is such an athlete, and he had the ball carrier vision that it was deadly on kick returns and punt returns. And the thing is with him is that's what he has against him, because you look at, like you said, your skilled positions, your wide receivers, your tight ends and stuff like that, to nominate just solely a punt returner or a kick returner into the Hall of Fame is going to be so difficult. He would be the groundbreaker for this one. So it's tough for Devin Hester. It's going to be a tough road for him to get through here. I think he was great. If you're trying to just compile it on greatness and what they did, though, I think he has to be one of the best of all time then.
You know, and that's the thing is there was very few, I'll say, of high caliber returners. Guys like Devin Hester, guys like Dante Hall, like those guys that showed up, and there wasn't a lot of them. But when they showed up and you kicked the ball off, Devin Hester and guys like Dante Hall, when you kicked the ball off, you weren't kicking the ball off to them. You did not want them to return the ball. You were kicking it either, if you could, at the time, through the back of the end zone, or you were literally kicking it away from them and trying to pin them on one side of the field or the other. So because they were so dynamic when they got the ball in their hands, super quick, super fast. I mean, just hard to get a read on where they were going to go. And guys like Hester just changed the game in terms of returning kickoffs and punts and what have you. I mean, they could single-handedly just swing the game the other way in their favor just by one return, and just change the whole rest of the game. So for Hester, Do I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame? For sure. Guys like him, guys like Dante Hall, I believe belong in the Hall of Fame. However, what makes it a very, very steep hill to climb for them is the fact, like when we alluded with offensive linemen, is like, what did they do? Yeah, they were phenomenal at returning kicks, but that's all they did.
And how do you gauge that? Yeah.
So, like, when you're comparing a Torrey Holt right now, because he's on the list, Torrey Holt to Devin Hester, who are you picking between the two? I'm taking Torrey Holt because why? Because he has a bigger body of work as a receiver and more prominent role in an offense. So that's where I think he's gonna. If he does not make the cut and doesn't get into the Hall this year, it's going to be because of those reasons. Because they're going to look at other players that have a more prominent role that they played for their team instead of just returning a kick. You know what I mean? In that retrospect.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got Eric Bowers in the house.
What up, Eric? What's going on, bro?
He says John Randall wasn't the biggest either, and he holds the sack record for D tackles.
Yeah,
so there you go.
And the other thing too about John Randall is it wasn't just D tackle. That guy could play anywhere on the D line. You saw him at the end a lot of times when it was like third down, like he would just rush off the edge because he was a menace. The guy was nuts, like clinically insane. I think.
Yeah.
Guy was just off the charts, crazy, and his teammates loved him. He's a great person, but man, when it came to game day, in between the sidelines, that dude was a different person. Like he was not all there. And quarterbacks were fearsome of him. So, but yeah, John Randall, great player, played everywhere. And then we got Eric Bowers also said Torrey Holt for sure. He would finish up the greatest show on turf. That's correct because Isaac Bruce got in.
Yes.
So
yep, and you got Kurt Warner there and Marshall Faulks there too.
It's
so
one of those things
bang.
though that yes, he definitely deserves to be in the Hall, but we are so limited on votes. We're so limited on who can get in. 5 of these guys, just 5. 5 of these guys are going to get voted off of this list. That's it.
That's it. Then
Every
the rest
year,
go back
it's
in.
only 5 on the modern era list. So, unfortunately, you got to make some tough decisions. Some of these guys, even though most of these guys probably are deserving to be in the Hall, they don't always all make it.
Yep, absolutely. And speaking of Torrey Holt, there he is there, 1999 through 2008, the St. Louis Rams it was then, and then the 2009 Jaguars. A lot of people don't even remember him there for the Jags. But yeah, Torrey Holt, again, specialist, and he was one of those guys, like, for me, he was kind of like the T.O. before T.O., and like the Ocho Cinco in a sense, though, too. He's had that little bit of a flair to him, not as extreme as those guys and what they did, with the different, gimmicks and stuff when they scored touchdowns and stuff like that. But he had that spazz, Joe.
I'll say this about Torrey Holt, though. Torrey Holt was one of the quietest receivers.
Yeah.
Like, he never said nothing.
Yeah, that's true there, yeah.
He was very quiet person. He was, you know what he was to me, is he was the best slot receiver. Like, they moved him around, but he was like one of the best slot receivers before slot receiver became like one of the go-to options in the offense. So Torrey Holt kind of like really woke up some coaches, some front office staff about like, hey, let's not worry about just 2 receivers. Let's add a third and then utilize him. Because Torrey Holt just like blew off the map. Like we saw it with the Rams, with the greatest show on turf, and how explosive they were. And Torrey Holt was a prominent player for them. And that's why, you see his inflamed, numbers and everything. And that's why he is where he is. It's not because he was just a secondary option. It's because he was that impactful also as well.
All right, we got Mike Tackett in the house with us tonight, Joe.
He said, whenever Hester gets in, does it open the door for an Eric Metcalf or a Brian Mitchell to get in next? Opening the door, sure. But the thing is like, Mike, as you know, like it's an uphill battle for Hester alone to get in.
It was an uphill battle for those guys even. Brian Mitchell, you look at those 2 guys. Those 2 guys are one of the greatest to ever do that as well. And they're not in.
No.
You know what I mean?
Because it's just returning. That's the problem. Unless I would say this, like if they had extra, not like to the stature of like an Andre Johnson or a Torrey Holt or something like that, but if Devin Hester not only was that great at returning, but also was a average wide receiver, it would be kind of hard to argue he shouldn't be in yet. You know what I mean? Then you can kind of like say, well, but he still was a compliment to the offense, and he was just one of the best to ever return a ball. So then you could kind of like leapfrog over like someone else as a receiver. So that's the thing, is it's so difficult for a guy like Hester, like Brian Mitchell, like Eric Metcalf to get in, because all they did was return. Now, they were the best to ever do it, but that's all they had to offer this great game.
Absolutely. He's one of 2 return specialists on the NFL 100 all-time team as well, and also a member of the NFL's all-decade team in 2010s. Okay, so Torrey Holt, again, and we've already kind of covered his career. Again, we know more as a Rams guy, the greatest show on turf. There you go. I mean, his stats are there. Check him out. 920 career receptions for 13,382 yards and 74 touchdowns. So, I mean,
if you guys,
he's there.
If you guys could, too, if you wanted to dive into this a little farther and look at their stats and everything, really suggest going to ProFootballReference.com and checking out like the Hall of Fame list with their stats. That way you guys can get a better idea of like how high up on the all-time list are they for their position.
Yeah.
And that might actually help you with saying yay or nay, should they be in the Hall of Fame? Because that's kind of like what we use to when we get really deep into it and saying, does he deserve to be there? Yeah, probably, because he's in the top 5. You know what I mean? Like Aaron Donald, we looked up one year.
Like system they have too. Like, don't they have like a grading system? Like their number for career to Hall of Fame record
grading
number
system
would be
doesn't
this
mean
or
anything
like
though.
I know, it's like a way they gauge it.
It just doesn't mean anything. Like you need to look at like what they did and kind of you can make your case that way. Like we found out by utilizing their website, we found out that Richard Seymour really doesn't deserve to be in the Hall.
Yeah,
doesn't.
Right.
Like you hear his name and you're like, oh yeah, he was great. Yeah, he was great, but he wasn't great enough to be anywhere close to the top 5. Like anywhere in the top 10. Like nothing like that. He's way down on the list. And I thought when you hear his name, you're like, yeah, he was dominating. He got a lot of sacks and this, that, and the other thing. Well, not as many as you would think when you look at it that way.
Absolutely. So let's move on to Andre Johnson now. Again, a lot of people, don't really recall him, I guess, nowadays. Again, because
dominant receiver.
It was the beginning of the Houston Texans that he was kind of there. He's the first player ever to be elected to the Texans Ring of Honor, and that was in 2017. He surpassed 1,000 receiving yards 7 times. So, I mean, this guy is just bang, 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 clips. He was one of those first dominant wide receivers out there that you kind of see now that keep getting those 1,000-yard years, one after another, bang, bang. And he led the NFL in receptions twice, too, also in 2006 and 2008. Finished with over 1,062 receptions for 14,085 yards. So that's even more than Torrey Holt and just 4 touchdowns shy with really no good quarterback, really, Joe. I mean,
no.
Carr had his time a little bit there, but
I feel bad for that guy.
Offensive line was so terrible. We're surprised that
there
he's
was no
an
line.
analyst even right now and not a vegetable. You know what I mean? So David Carr. And he still throws better than Dak Prescott, apparently, too, and more accurate. So, I mean, it's amazing here for Andre Johnson, the career that he had with so many different lists of quarterbacks throwing into him and having that lucrative of a career, Joe.
And that's why having a dominant number 1 receiver is a big deal, because he can also make any quarterback look good. They had a rotation of quarterbacks in that franchise at the time. Very terribly run organization at the time.
They were fresh.
And honestly, no offensive line. Like they had bodies, but they didn't know how to block because, like you mentioned, David Carr, always getting hit, always getting pressured. Even when they snap the ball and they're already running at him. Like the guy had no time at all. And for Andre Johnson to not only be drafted by the Texans, but also to have the career that he did with what was available on that roster is in itself impossible for what he was able to accomplish. So Andre Johnson is probably one of the guys that you should not overlook lightly. Was super dominant even with the odds stacked against him.
All right, we've got a bunch of different comments here, Joe. We got to catch up. So
yeah, Mike,
appreciate him out there, everybody, too.
Right.
We're trying to catch up with him.
Mike Tackett said Metcalf was also 100-plus catch, 1,200-yard receiver, too, during his best wide receiver years. Yeah, but like my thing is, it can't be just like let's say 4 years grouped together, and that's what his stats were.
Right.
It's got to be a little bit, got to be a
But
little
that's
bit.
what I mean, though, too. Well, I think maybe if Mike's saying maybe at this point, like I would take Metcalf over, Devin Hester. I think, to get him more because he was more of a wide receiver.
I mean, we could,
you know what I'm saying?
He's
And
got
they haven't made
stats
it
too
there
at
yet,
receiver
too.
as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
we could always look that up.
Yep.
Eric Barr said, great player for the Texans for a long time on really crappy teams. Absolutely right. Ryan Graham, what's going on, Ryan? Welcome to the show, bro. He said, Raiders offense made me sad this year. Too much talent, even without coaching. It was just sad. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Every team kind of goes through it, and right now they're taking their bumps and bruises until they find their next coach.
Joe, there's another prime example. Look at, Devontae Adams not having a quarterback right now and still having a decent, season or whatever, but looking on the losing, kind of team. They almost made the playoffs, but the frustration that he even went through this season. Imagine 10 seasons of that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The Raiders know exactly all about that.
Well, some of the wide receivers don't because they'll complain about it and leave quicker than that.
Nah. Mike Tackett, I hope we don't let our emotions let anyone else into Canton. Revis had a few good years. Meh. I'm worried Sean Taylor will get an emotional vote too. There are senior guys who need to be in the hall. Mike, you're preaching to the choir. There's just not enough openings to get all these guys in. Revis definitely deserves to be there. Just like you brought up Sean Taylor. Sean Taylor, oh my God, such a dominant safety. But, and this is the reason why I feel like he's not kind of the slam dunk is as great as he was. And it was definitely like one of the best safeties at his time. But the problem is as sad as it is, he passed away. He had a short career, and it's one of those things where, like, what if he was still alive, he would decimate a lot of these all-time stats, hands down. The guy would have been in the Hall of Fame, hands down. But I know it's such an unfortunate thing, but because he passed away and because he didn't have that longer body of work, I feel like that's kind of what's going against him. I don't agree with it. Because if he was that dominant, but at the same time, like, that's really what it is, and it's a terrible thing to say, but I feel like that's what, when they have these meetings and the committee gets together, that's part of the negotiation is should we or shouldn't we? Because really, he only played a few years.
Yeah,
Sean Taylor and Bo Jackson are too big. What if in the NFL? Yeah, you're right, Eric. Bo Jackson was another one. Got injured, would have been. Who knows how great he would have been as a running back. So, yep. But he fits in the same category as Taylor. Is like they got their careers shortened from two very different situations, but that's why it's harder for them.
Yeah, I mean, and they have their spot there. You know, I mean,
they're still viewed as great.
Yeah, and you're gonna have their spot there in Canton. Just their busts with the separate room of everything, enshrined.
Yeah, it'll literally be enshrined.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, definitely memorabilia, and remember the greatness that they did have. I think should be there. For some reason, our camera decided to just jack up and do something crazy, Joe. You see that?
Yeah,
so
I'm
I think
ignoring it.
everybody can still hear our audio, so we appreciate you sticking with us, even though the visual's not there. I'll try and fix this on the fly as we go. But there we go. We covered, Andre Johnson, rip camera, Mike. Yep, absolutely. I'll get it going again. I do this stuff for all the time here. So here we go. So Andre Johnson again. Big time wide receiver. Mostly remember with the Texans, the Colts a little bit, and the Titans there too. So Albert Lewis, Joe, why don't you jump into that while I try to fix the camera situation here? But Albert Lewis, cornerback for the Kansas City Chiefs, the Raiders here, 1983 to 93. So a little older than we were just kids.
Yeah,
then.
he's up to be a senior. Vote in, not as part of the modern era, but he's part of the senior vote. Great, phenomenal athlete, was a great safety, was, everything you wanted him to be. Not only was he great at like just straight up pass coverage, but also would come up and support against the run and what have you. But he was just a good all around safety, was always where he needed to be, had plenty of turnovers, changed some games by himself, and just one of those great players.
Yeah, I'm still trying to fix this camera situation here. But yeah, I mean, it's tough too, because for me, to recognize what he did, I didn't get to see a whole lot of coverage on it again. So for me to have to go through stats, he helped the Chiefs, get to the AFC Championship game, in 1993 with 6 interceptions in the regular season. But, again, career total of 42 interceptions, 13 forced fumbles, 12 and a half sacks, decent, back there, as a corner. But I don't think super crazy, for me, to be labeled into the Hall of Fame, it's tough. That's why he's probably been in 20 years of eligibility right now, Joe.
But then you have to look at it like from his era. You can't look at it from modern day era either. You have to look back at what the safeties were doing back in his time, in that allotted time in his career. Unfortunately, though, because he's part of that senior category list, he will not be up for this season. Maybe he's going to have a bet, maybe better luck next year. They've announced that they have their 3 that they're going to discuss for the upcoming next meeting. Randy Gradishar, Steve McMichael, and Art Powell are the finalists coming up. And they've already announced that the coach for their coach/contributor finalist is Buddy Parker. So that's that. But the modern era list, that's the real tough one that they still have to sort through.
Yeah, so I can only get our 2 side cameras here, so everybody just bear with me as we go through all this. So for some reason, that camera fuzzed out. I have no idea what the hell just happened.
Did we overuse the camera now?
Who knows what the hell happened? Done? It just phased out, but we're working through it. So now you get a close-up of me now a lot more. So here we go. We got Daryl Rivas here. We talked about him a little bit here because Mike Tackett brought him up. The fact that, again, he was Rivas Island shutdown corner 2007 to 2012 with the Jets, and then back again with them in 2015 to 16. Played a little bit with the Buccaneers, the Patriots, Chiefs, trying to jump on those bandwagon type of runs for the Super Bowl. Didn't really work out so well with him. I think he did with the Patriots, though. But again, shutdown corner, he's there. He had some good times, but I think Mike Tackett had also alluded to, though, at times he did get burned at times for some things, too, and not major stats for pick sixes and things like that. He was more of that, just don't throw my way, because he will get those pass defense. When you talk about that, Joe, with different people, like when we looked at Sauce Gardner coming into the league, that's what he really just had. He had a lot of that pass defense, he would not allow any catches at all. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like he had a lot of interceptions for touchdowns and all this other stuff too on top of it. Which he did well, but Rivas was just known for that guy, just, to try and, keep the offense and looking the opposite way and really shutting down your number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah, I have a different memory of Rivas altogether. Not only was he just shut down, but he was really physical. He got away with a lot in terms of beating up receivers and whatnot. He had his fair share of picks. He had a ton of pass breakups, and he was difficult to deal with for any receiver out there. So the Jets, when they had him when they drafted him and whatnot, he was just dominating. And you saw quarterbacks stop throwing his direction because they knew that it could be an issue. You might end up giving the ball back to the Jets. So that's why they started going away from him altogether. They started throwing to the other side of the field, the middle of the field, but they would very reluctantly throw to that left side of the field.
All right, we've got another comment. What we got, Joe?
I said that what makes a player Hall of Fame worthy? Is it personnel accolades or team player accolades, or are we considering a player's eligibility based purely on their football life? Honestly, it's everything all together. There's not one element that's left out. And in these meetings, when they're discussing, this receiver versus that receiver, there's all different variables that they're utilizing. It's not just performance on the football field. Mm-hmm. That's a big major step for sure. It's production. It's impact in the game. It's, I know it sounds silly, but even their personality, way they handled interviews, the way they talk to people, the way they handle themselves off the field. It's literally everything that the player did in their time in the NFL. So, yes, production and performance and how much of a game wrecker they were on the football field, that's a big major part, but there are other variables that are involved when they have these meetings in their discussions.
Yeah, I agree with you there too. Less I think, some certain things with the team stats, I'll go with, some of it's very important, especially for the franchises, if it helps turn them around too, and also elevate them through the Super Bowl. But yeah, I mean, all together, all of it's combined, like you're saying, Joe. Quick on Revis again, he finished his NFL career with 29 interceptions, 3 returns for touchdowns, 139 pass defense, and in 2009 he led the NFL in pass defense with 31. So there he was again, like we said, shutdown corner. And that brings up Joe Thomas here. Joe Thomas here is his first year of finalist, first year of eligibility, and he's got to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think for this guy too. You talk about offensive tackles and how tough it is for these guys to get in here, but Joe Thomas, again, solid throughout his career on a terrible team again. And when you talk about, I think we talked about, you could bring it up maybe when Willie Anderson as well, because you had a lot of sack leaders and Hall of Fame sack guys then, and you have pass rushers that he was facing off against here too, that it was just holding it down against them. So the fact that he was able to make the All-Pro 6 seasons in a row, and then also, the Pro Bowl many years, just over and over continuous on a losing team despite all that still. I mean, it's pretty amazing. So I think that's a great stat for him. And again, to be on a losing team and still play at an elite level, I think this shows what type of player you are altogether.
Yeah, Joe Thomas, great player. I believe last year that he got put into the Hall of Fame, so he's already in there. That was like the last year's big ceremony and everything. Joe Thomas,
so
phenomenal player.
What list am I looking at then?
Probably last year's list.
What the hell? How did that even happen?
But Joe Thomas, phenomenal player, definitely deserved to be in the Hall of Fame for sure. Like, guy was just dominant. You could not get by the guy. Like, when we talk about offensive linemen not getting enough praise or lack of stats to kind of go off of, there was no argument when it came to Joe Thomas. Like, once Joe Thomas graced the football field as an offensive tackle for the Cleveland Browns, nobody was pressuring the quarterback on his side. Like, it was done. I don't care who you sent on his side or whatever. He was giving them either fits or just flat out stopping them, like in their tracks. So Joe Thomas, phenomenal offensive tackle, great pass protector, and a great run blocker as well. He wouldn't give up on the play until the whistle was blown. You'd see a guy being pushed into the sidelines over a bench, until the whistle. So Joe Thomas, phenomenal player, excellent athlete, and a great person as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So who next do we got here, Joe? Then seeing my list is probably all jacked up.
Okay, so I don't know if we want to go to every finalist because there's only 15. Mm-hmm. But we have covered a few of them already, like Andre Johnson, Torrey Holt we covered, Devin Hester we covered, Dwight Freeney we covered.
What do you think about
Jared
Harrison?
Allen?
What do you think about Rodney Harrison?
Great safety. Unbelievable. Like definitely needs to be in the Hall of Fame, hands down. And this is coming from a Raiders fan. This guy was a Charger through and through. He played a few years towards the end of his career with the New England Patriots. But, man, this guy did everything extremely well. And when he came up to do run support, he didn't just come up and tackle. He flat out came up and knocked your helmet off. Like he was like a missile coming to get his target and would just flat out blow you up. So Rodney Harrison was not only just a great hitter, but also extremely well in coverage. Like the interceptions speak for themselves, the tackles for loss, everything about this guy. He was all over the football field and just flat out amazing.
Yeah, I got to say, pretty much the same type of stuff here for him too. Again, he was one of those physical guys, probably well known for me now, with the David Tyree helmet catch and stuff like that. But that was just uncharacteristic. He was even wrapped up all over him. So you couldn't get any better coverage on David Tyree on that one. That just happened to be the ball was where it was and he happened to land the way it did. And that's the only reason why he's even known for that play there. But besides that, locked down again, very physical. Mm-hmm. So I think he's a great player that could be possibly inducted into this year's Hall of Fame. I think another player that's key to look at here is Antonio Gates. Again, Antonio Gates was that different breed of tight end like you see with your Travis Kelce's or so, like now,
Now it's common.
Yeah, now it's common. Yeah, basically, when we talked about, when Mike Ditka, he came into the league, he sort of changed it in a sense, because he was that receiving threat, but then could block a bit here, but really getting it done in receiving, and being that thinner type of, but strong tight end. It didn't come back until a lot of these former basketball players started becoming tight ends and transforming into these tight ends. And that's what Antonio Gates was, and kind of opened the door for guys like you see now with these tight ends and like your Darren Wallers too on top of it, to where they weren't just that extra smaller lineman on the side that would help, run block a little bit here and possibly go out on a throw, but actually like Travis Kelce, the offense, the major part of the offense and scoring for the team. Like if the Chiefs do not have, your Kelce's right now, they'd be struggling right now. They're struggling at times now, but without him, they wouldn't. And that's the way Antonio Gates was.
Yeah, Gates was just dominating tight end. He was just basically a glorified big receiver. Like he was just an oversized receiver who had speed for his size and athletic ability and just flat out caught the ball no matter where you threw it. He had a huge catching radius, and it just made everything easier for Phillip Rivers, who was his quarterback, and racked up a ton of stats. Like, stuff that when he was playing, it was like you never heard of this before in your life. A tight end that was catching has just as many receptions and yards or more and touchdowns than receivers in the league. So it was one of those kind of turning points for that position, to like kind of for other teams to take a seat back and look and be like, hey, we need to find one of those guys that can attack with their gigantic size, but man, they run like wide receivers. So now you're starting to see that more and more into the game. It definitely has changed the dynamic in terms of offense, and Gates is just a catalyst for it.
All right. We covered pretty much a lot of these guys here. Julius Peppers, again, for a time. Again, was very dominant at his position.
Great player.
Yeah, absolutely. And they had that shot to with the Super Bowl, I think, right there when he was with the Packers.
Oh,
and
I know.
They were going to win, and he was celebrating. He was ready to go, too. And then that game just turned right around on him, and they did not make it. I mean, that was crushing for them going forward here. But, again, that guy, like when he came out, for the Carolina Panthers right on his rookie year, he was a freak, what I mean? That's what I mean. Everybody kind of known him as, he was just out there making plays and, crazy pass rusher. And people didn't see anything like this guy, and he was dominant for a very long time.
No, that's the thing, though. When you look at his body type, there's a reason why he was drafted so high. You can't make players like that. That's something you can't teach. His height, his size, and his quickness and speed to go with it was insane. I mean, the guy was like 6'6", like freaking close 275, 300, and was strong as a bull, and he had speed to go with it. Just flat out would terrorize offensive linemen, quarterbacks, running backs. Was just an amazing player, and a guy for his immense size to come into the league, for him to just flat out take over games at times. It was amazing. So Julius Peppers was definitely one of those go-to defensive players, and he is, in fact, deserving to get into the Hall of Fame. One other guy that I'd like to kind of just kind of touch on is Reggie Wayne. Like Reggie Wayne, you hear that name, you should know who he is. Reggie Wayne, one of the more dynamic wide receivers from 2007 to 2014 for the Indianapolis Colts, and was part of that whole big-time offense with Peyton Manning as the quarterback, Edgerrin James as the running back, and Reggie Wayne was the favorite. The guy was just, Peyton Manning would throw to him all the time because he was always open, always making big plays. And another one of those dynamic wide receivers that would just straight up take over games.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree with you there too as well. Again, because even afterwards, what you see the wide receivers that make it with the star quarterbacks, and you wanted to see if that's what it was. People even question that sometimes about Marvin Harrison too. If he didn't have the Peyton Manning, what would he do? I mean, but you saw it even what they were able to do throughout his career. Look at his son now. Look at Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, it's bred. It's there. You know what I mean? It's in the blood.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
legacy.
Yep. So, and Reggie Wayne, he had Peyton Manning for the first end of his career, and then afterwards, even with Andrew Luck, and then so on, still pretty good in a long career here with the Colts. So he's up there. I think he's a good shot to get in. But Joe, if you had to pick 5 finalists now, who do you think you would roll with right now?
That's the thing, right? Is you have to try to figure out like who and the insane thing is nobody is more deserving to get in than these players that are in this final list here. Mm-hmm. But you got to kind of nitpick a little bit. I guess for me, I've been waiting for Jared Allen as one of my guys that had to get in. Mm-hmm. Sack artist was dominant. Dwight Freeney's another one that I just feel like I don't know how you can not have him into the league, because not only was he dominant, but he was also underrated for a long time when he first came into the league because of his stature, because of everything. I would say right off the top, I'd say Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson, because of how dominant he was in his whole career with a crappy team, and he still was to pull off Hall of Fame numbers. Definitely got to put him in there. That's 3. Shoot. I think I'm going to have to go with Reggie Wayne. Reggie Wayne will be my 4th. Guy has Hall of Fame numbers. He's one of the best to ever do it. Got to be in there. And then my 5th one, that's tough. I'll have to give the nod to Gates. Mm-hmm. Antonio Gates, one of the best tight ends, in the history of the league. He's deserving to be in there. But I'm not saying that guys like Torrey Holt don't deserve. Peppers does deserve to be there. Fred Taylor, there's other guys that definitely can be in there. It's super difficult to pick just 5, even out of just 15.
Right. And I think you pretty much nailed everything that I was going to say. Again, I wouldn't do Reggie Wayne, though, and then maybe I would do Torrey Holt again, because I think with some of these guys, too, they're probably getting in. It's just what timing, and I think he's done his weight a little bit enough to get in there, and then Reggie Wayne, I think, will get his due and then be in there. I think just because, like you even said, it's how you were in the media sometimes, or what it is, or sometimes you just have to wait a little longer, and that's your tier of getting in. You know what I mean, Joe?
There's 2 asterisks that I want to talk about that did make the final list, but I don't think they'll make it in the Hall of Fame. Is Patrick Willis, mm-hmm. the tremendous linebacker for the 49ers, and Darren Woodson, the safety for the Dallas Cowboys. And I'll tell you why. Willis is pretty easy because he had a short career. He had a good career for 7 years. It's not real short, but was super dominant. But at the same time, it's like his career, he could have played longer. And I really would have liked to see that. But also, he was injured a lot. People forget, as dominant as he was for the Niners, he was injured a lot and missed a lot of time. So that, to me, is kind of what would hold him back if he never gets to the Hall of Fame. For Woodson, he was like a big-time safety, but he was that typical in-the-box safety that they talk about, a guy that would play down low in the box of the defense, where he would come up for run support quite often. Not great at coverage. Was good, but not great at coverage. But again, like I feel like as a body of work, was a really good player for the league. Was definitely worthy of consideration. But I don't know if he has enough behind him to get him over the hump and into the Hall.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's our Hall of Fame finalist scenarios here. So next up, Joe, let's talk about.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the playoff scenarios that we have looking forward here this coming week here, because it's week 18 here, the final week of the season. So some of these games, again, NFL goes through and looks at it and makes the last week's schedule up afterwards to see how it's all going to lay out, and change it up to see where the team's going to be and where they're going to play. Just so it's better for us fans here too, and then with implications on the division and whether they get in or not. So as we're looking at a few different scenarios here, there's some that have already been locked in and locked their spot here in the playoffs. Let's look at the AFC.
As of last week, a lot changed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Isn't it funny how we were talking about it even a little bit? But Baltimore's in, Kansas City's in, and the Browns are in. Now, when it comes here to the Miami Dolphins too. They're in, but they get to play the Buffalo Bills here.
It's a big game
and that
this
will
week.
change on who gets even the title. So either way, the Dolphins are in here too, but the Buffalo Bills need to win this one so that way they can clinch the division, and get in there. Because if they lose too, they've got the multiple losses here to the Miami Dolphins, so that doesn't get them in there. So then it would have to mean they would have to tie, or Pittsburgh would have to lose or tie, Jacksonville would have to lose or tie, or the Houston-Indianapolis game would have to be a tie completely too. So different scenarios here for Buffalo to get in. But when we talked about the Buffalo Bills last week, Joe, we're looking at contenders and pretenders. I was saying that, yes, they are a contender here, and this might even kind of sneakily be their best spot here. So even if they win here and they take the division, there's still kind of that sneaky come from behind team, and they're that team that is winning right now in a row and kind of seem like they're playing their best football right now. And that's what usually decides the Super Bowl winner at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, and it's insane so far. Like we saw like a lot of teams drop off as of last week, wins and losses, and it's completely changed the spectrum once again. The seeding is still up for grabs for some teams out there. Like you just hit the nail on the head. This weekend, one of the biggest games for that AFC East division is the Dolphins and the Bills. And the Bills have been hot as of late. The Dolphins they've been hot, but they haven't been as hot as they were in the beginning of the year. So it remains to be seen what team we're going to see from the Dolphins, and are we going to see the still hot Bills into that matchup? Who's going to outdo who? So that's going to be a big indicator. Obviously, whoever wins that game is going to take the seat a little higher in the rankings there, and may the best team win.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely, Joe. So next, another team that's again on that bubble that has a chance to get in. That's kind of been sneaky for everybody here too this season, because who really saw what they were able to do. That's how successful they've been with their rookie quarterback, and that's the Houston Texans. Houston Texans, they have a chance to win the South title here after how bad that division has been. But they've been a surprise again. I thought they were just going to have some growing pains moving forward with their rookie quarterback. You see what's going down there with the Carolina Panthers here, what they're struggling with. I thought we saw similar types of things, at least, with growing pains, new coach trying to move forward and get things going. But hey, they've been playing hard and been in a lot of different games. And Jacksonville right now, they're vulnerable still again too. They've kind of shown that they can hang with some teams, but they just don't get enough to get over the edge. Almost sometimes for me seems like it with where I think of the Detroit Lions a little bit on the NFC side. But Houston, they will get in because they'll take the division if they beat the Jacksonville Jaguars right here. If they don't, Houston can still clinch a playoff berth.
Houston's got to beat the Colts, right?
Yeah. They got to
beat the Colts, and
they have to win, but and also
the
Jacksonville needs to lose or tie. Yeah. Yep, or Jacksonville, Houston tie, a Jacksonville loss, and a Pittsburgh loss or a tie. So if they tie this game, all is not lost. They still need Jacksonville to lose though, and Pittsburgh to lose though too. On top of it, and Pittsburgh kind of a real surprise team too for me, going forward in this one too, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, this game right here, I don't know. I don't have too much faith in Pittsburgh beating Baltimore this week. Houston, I think, has a chance to beat the Colts. I know the Colts have kind of surprised the last couple of weeks. And then there's other teams that I think that depending on this week, whether and there's a lot of scenarios, like you just mentioned one of them, where one team has to either lose or tie for another team to get pushed up into the playoffs, and that's going to happen pretty much all the way down the line of the teams that are still in the hunt. It's a very big week for them. Like, first things first is you got to take care of business. Whenever you're playing, you have to win as one of those teams that are still in the hunt. Or if you have a chance to move up in the rankings and you want to win this week, you still got to hope that there's some help that's going to help you kind of kick up a couple notches or so.
All right, we've got Mike Tackett's in the house. He says, damn shame that London Fletcher still doesn't get in, but had almost identical stats to Ray Lewis.
Isn't that crazy? Like, that's what I mean. Like, there's so much talent. There's so many really good players that are deserving to be in the Hall, but if you don't make the cut, they just can't force it. Like, I don't understand. I guess for me, I don't understand, like, why do they limit themselves only 5 at a time? Like, only 5 out of the hundreds of players you start with, you're only letting in 5 a year? That to me is a little insane. So, and it's not like it's a lifetime thing where, like, you could be considered 15 years later to make the Hall of Fame. No, there's a cutoff point. So once you get into the pool, you're into the pool for only so long, and then if you still don't make it, oops, sorry, you're not going to be in the Hall. Mm-hmm. So, like, to me, that's a little insane. When they start off with 100+ candidates, and then they weed it down to what they have now in 15, and you're still only going to vote 5 out of all of that.
Right. And yeah, and like you even said, and Mike Tackett brought up a good point of the fact of the emotional votes to get in there, what people think of the player altogether, fan bias and think as well, because we talked about Joe Namath, but that could have been era on top of it, what the era was like, and some of the greatness that he did have at times for the team stuff, but when you try and compare it stat-wise with a lot of guys, it doesn't really add up. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me, but whatever. But again, he was an icon of his time.
Yeah,
he was there and in different change.
Great player too.
Yep,
great player.
I get it. But the Indianapolis Colts, we just talked about them here with the Texans. Now on the opposite side, if they win, they've got the division, but they need to win, and Jacksonville needs to lose or tie, and they could tie, and Jacksonville still needs to lose in this scenario, or Indianapolis will win, or a tie here, or a loss with Pittsburgh. So again, Pittsburgh still in the mix on this whole side too as well. And we've talked about the Jacksonville Jaguars in this a bunch of different times. They are in the balance of all this, okay? So the whole nucleus goes against the Jaguars in this one, which they started off on fire here, and getting up there, and they've had a lot of losses, a lot of close losses.
Yep.
I mean, they've been putting up points against people, and that's the thing. But the injury, I think, with the Trevor Lawrence, they've been dealing with here. Now they had to put C.J. Beathard in and everything. That weighs in the balance of what this team is, and you can see the difference in the toll it's having on the team. Besides that, they have enough good players, and they can score. But they on the defensive side, they've been giving up points, so where the offense just can't catch up now at times.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like Trevor Lawrence is just extremely banged up right now, and it's unfortunate for the Jaguars because he's the guy. You know what I mean? When he's in there on offense, the team is just completely different. It plays differently. They're have perfect cohesion and they're just dialed in. Trevor Lawrence not being there, it looks like he's trying to get back this week because they know how important this week is for the Jaguars to try to lock it up. But man, is he banged up? Right shoulder, he's got a finger issue, and not to mention, I don't even think it's listed on the injury report, but it also had a bad ankle not too long ago. So, and he's taking a punishment. And it's like they put him in the lineup, maybe it's a little too early, and then he gets hit, and now he's back out. You know what I mean? So Trevor Lawrence is going to try to push through his injuries, going to try to help his team and get a win this week. But what I'll say is if the Jacksonville Jaguars cannot or have an issue protecting him at all, he could be knocked out of this game yet again. And now here comes, Beathard, and hopefully he can hold it together. So that's the big thing is the health of Lawrence. How healthy is he going to be for this game? Is he going to be able to last all game? Because we've seen the last 2 times that Lawrence has gone out there and said, no, I'm gonna be there for my team. We got to make it happen. And then he ends up getting knocked out of the game. This guy is beat up and everybody knows it. So Tennessee is going to be licking their chops trying to knock him back out of the game. So that'll be a critical thing for them is the health of Lawrence and how healthy they can keep him.
Right. I mean, and you talk about it. This is a perfect opportunity too, because this is a 3-way decision here for the title. Mm-hmm. It's a 3-way match here for the title without the Tennessee Titans. Mm-hmm. They're not involved, right? But they can be the spoiler. The spoiler.
That's right.
And that's the scary thing about it. And this is what they're looking for, and that will motivate this team.
They got nothing to
lose.
We've
seen Mike Vrabel do things like this, and that's what they are motivated by. Mm-hmm. They will do this. You know what I mean? So. There you go. This was a scenario for them. So Jacksonville, they just need to win.
Well, here's my thing. I want to take it a step further. But, as you put Trevor Lawrence in this situation, right? He's not 100% healthy. Everybody knows it. What if he does get hurt again? But you win. We'll say you held him off and you still won, but now he's hurt again. The playoff game, they're going to push him out there, but he's not going to be 100%. He's not going to be the same quarterback. He's going to have limitations. Maybe he won't be able to run out of the pocket like he normally does. You know what I mean? Maybe the throws aren't as on point as they used to be. So that could hinder them as well as trying to. I understand how important this is. I understand that having Trevor Lawrence out there is the best option, but if he's limping into the playoffs himself, literally, doesn't give you the best chance of winning, though, does it? So it's a double-edged sword by playing Trevor Lawrence in this last game.
Yeah, I mean, and this is where these other scenarios play out because, Joe, if you're bringing up that scenario there, you'll hear me out on this one. We've seen it done before with the playoffs. Look at Lamar Jackson last year with the Ravens. How far did they think they could go without putting Lamar in, and how healthy he was? Do they say, hey, we've been able to put up points with C.J. Beathard and stuff. Do we roll with this? Rest Trevor Lawrence here because we think as a team we can beat the Tennessee Titans and who they are right now.
Mm-hmm.
We can go through and fulfill our destiny here. We can rest Trevor Lawrence and still come out of here with a win because also we have the scenario of the fact that, Pittsburgh, they need to lose. Basically, or Denver lose or tie too on top of it. So they have a different scenarios here where if they lose, they're not completely out of it.
They need help, though.
A little bit of help, but still pretty
help.
close enough help. But that's what I mean. But do they think that they can beat this team without? And we've seen it before with other teams.
Obviously not.
Do they go that route, though?
Obviously not.
Will Doug Peterson do that? We've seen him do some sketchy stuff, Joe. Because remember what he did? Remember when they're on the chance to win the game with Jalen Hurts back when he was coaching the Eagles and they had a chance to do it with the Giants and stuff like that. And they pulled him out of the game.
Yeah, I remember
just so
that.
the Giants would win to screw over, or the Giants. No, they were playing the Washington or something like that.
I think
they could screw over the Giants of getting in.
It was. They did to screw over the Giants.
Yeah, to screw over the Giants. They could have won.
Yeah,
and then they pulled them out to lose to the Commanders.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the Redskins at that time.
But that's the thing is,
football team.
From what it stands right now, Doug Peterson they are going to try to play Trevor Lawrence.
March him out.
It's going to happen because. He does give them the best chance to win, obviously, but an injured Trevor Lawrence, does that really give you the best chance to win right now? So
where do you put yourself moving forward?
And that's the thing is I know it's kind of like do or die because you can never rely on help. You can never rely on other teams for help because we've seen some crazy things happen. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where a team should have made it into the playoffs. This team should have lost, but they didn't. Mm-hmm. And now a team that was hoping that they would lose, now they're out. So this scenario right here for the Jaguars, it's a difficult one. I understand the pressure to play Trevor Lawrence and try to seal up a W here, but man, you're playing with fire a little bit. How healthy will Trevor Lawrence be, even if you pull off the win to go into the playoffs?
All right, we got Mike Tackett here with a comment. Joe, what does he say?
So the Packers and 5 other teams are interested in the services of Antonio Brown for the playoffs. Playoffs? Let this be proof that GMs and owners also get CTE. Hashtag. Thanks.
Oh, man.
Thanks, Vontez Perfect. Wow.
Oh, man, yeah.
Wow. Wait.
Is there really some interest?
Hold on. I don't think that's real. I really have a hard time thinking that's real. Yeah, I kind of doubt that. Those might be articles spewing out about 5 teams about Antonio Brown. Who knows? Antonio Brown probably paid the newspapers to print that. Yeah, I don't believe that. After everything that dude's.
Well, that's the thing, though, too. I'd say Antonio Brown's people might be saying that. Oh yeah, by the way, I've been contacted a few times by teams that said, they're
Mike,
is that
that can't be true, Mike?
Yeah.
Where are you hearing this?
Yeah,
I need to know sources. What else he say?
People near and dear to Antonio Brown.
Oh, he had a comment earlier. Said, is there a rule in place that prohibits someone who's elected in the Hall of Fame to return to the league under the same capacity? Not so much as a player, as the window closes fast, but coaches specifically. What I will say is that there is a rule in place where in order to be put into the Hall of Fame pool to be considered a Hall of Famer, You have to be at least out of the game for 5 years. So by no means can I ever see a coach, a player, after 5 years, probably 6, 7, maybe even longer than that, until they get into the Hall of Fame, and that's if they do. I don't think at any point in time they would even consider coming back. I think it's too far out of the game, even though I think technically they could. But I think that at that point, they're at the end of their career. They've already made that decision. They're not going to go back and either, like as a player, beat their bodies up more at an older age, or for a coach to go under the stress that is coaching as well.
Right. Yep. That's what I think the scenario too is as well. Same thing. And finally here, I guess for
Mike,
AFC, what does he say now?
Mike said, let's eliminate division winners as automatic playoff qualifiers. Best 8 for each conference. Are you like proposing
best 8 teams? He's saying not division leaders. He's just saying the best 8 records,
best
right?
8 okay, best 8 for each conference. Hey, I'm down. That makes more sense. Because because think about it. Because we've seen divisions where the division winner, look at the NFC South right now.
Yeah.
That's perfect right now. Is none of them are really winning teams. They're 500 or less. Like it's a bad division right now this year. And one of them is going to get that division win, and they're going to be put in the playoffs. Now, do they deserve to be there? Probably not. But they're going to be because they happen to win the division. So by doing what Mike Tackett is suggesting, is just taking the best 8 records of each conference and have them duke out in the playoffs. I'd be down with that. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that if you put it that way. Yeah, definitely. Just because you see this with the college football, what it is now too with the college football playoffs. Yes, a committee selects who they think is. It's different.
That is way different.
But I'm just saying the fact that division leaders in the college football rankings, it doesn't even matter. You can win the Big Ten or you can win whatever. It doesn't matter whether if you're going to make it further into playoffs or go for the championship at all. That is just nobody could give a damn. If you were the Big 10 champion or whatever, the SEC, whatever, nobody cares. It doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? It
the
does
championship you're talking about the conference championship. Yeah. It does matter if you have 2 teams that have similar records or whatever, and you win the championship, you're almost guaranteed, or you should be guaranteed to be in the playoff.
It's not though.
But
it should
no,
be.
It's very different.
Yes,
college is completely different. We can't compare college the way they handle their playoff system to the NFL. Because they have a voting system. It's not if you go undefeated you're in, because that's how it used to always be. Regardless of what it is, we saw this season where Florida State went undefeated. They won their championship. They went 13-0, and then to get slated because the committee viewed them as not as going to be as competitive because they no longer had their starting quarterback. They had a backup quarterback in place, and they were like, well, we don't think they stand a chance in the playoffs, so we're just going to dismiss the fact that they went undefeated and did everything the right way. We're going to dismiss them, and we're going to put in a team that we think is going to give better, show better football or be more of a competitive team in the playoff. And that to me was wrong, because now you're skewing who deserves to be in the playoff based on your own thoughts. It's not about what the team did all year long is what you request them to do in college is basically go undefeated. They did that, but you're like, nah, we're good. We're going to put Alabama in and Texas is going into, and then that's that. So college, I still think they desperately need to figure that whole thing out. I know next year they're going to expand the playoffs. I think it's going to be the top 8, I think. If Mike Tackett, correct me if I'm wrong. He just said Florida State has entered the chat.
That's hilarious.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. If is it going up to 8 or is it somewhere around that number? I think it's 8. Where they expanding the playoffs, so it might make the playoffs a little bit more interesting, much like the NFL. Like the NFL is way more interesting because, you get your record, you get a lot of times you deserve to be there. And then it makes it for really good football. We've seen a lot of upsets in the playoffs too.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think even
Oh,
this.
he said top 12.
There you go. Top
top
12. I
12.
was gonna say 12 was for some reason was in my head, but I
You didn't pull the trigger.
I didn't pull the trigger on that one, but I don't know. A lot of people follow it more than I do, but I gotta tell you though, the teams that played over the weekend, on New Year's Day, they were competitive games though, and they were tight. So I think they got it right still. I mean, I understand your argument to it all though with records because technically they should be because they had a better record.
They should be.
But those two games were competitive all the way through.
There was only one game that stood out to
amazing.
me.
You know what I mean?
One game
the
stood out
game?
to me. Yes.
That one was
that
crazy.
one was amazing.
Back and forth. It was just
that was the epitome of what you want the college playoff to be about.
Mm-hmm.
Is two really deserving teams to be there and to compete their tails off, and was a close game all the way through. That game was back and forth, and it went right down to the final second, where Texas still had an opportunity to tie it and possibly go into overtime. And wow, it was just an amazing game.
All right, and finally with the AFC though, here for this guys, Pittsburgh, they've got a bunch of stuff that needs to happen, so they still have a chance. They have a chance. They got to win either way.
No,
if they don't, then they're done.
No.
So, but they got a lot of different stuff. In Miami again, they're already in. They just might have a chance to win the title here.
My thing with Pittsburgh is that they do literally have a shot because Baltimore is going to rest their starters pretty much. They're going to rest Lamar Jackson. What's his face? Tyler. I'm forgetting his last name now. The backup quarterback for the Ravens.
Yeah.
He's going to step in. He's going to start. So I wonder, how many other players, does that mean Odell and Rashad Bateman are going to rest? You know what I mean?
They're probably going to rest Odell.
Their offense could be completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And their defense, too. They're going to rest probably some big-time defensive players and, Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith, maybe, possibly. And that changed the dynamic of that game now. It depends how many guys are going to rest. Where Pittsburgh could probably steal a win there. But Baltimore is still not an easy team to play regardless.
Greg Schreiner's in the house. He says it was Tyler Huntley. Tyler Huntley,
that's
backup.
it. Thanks,
That's right.
Greg. Appreciate it. Hey, welcome to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Then they've got 2 weeks to rest because they've already got the number 1 seed locked up there,
they're
too.
locked
So
up.
they
They're
can
good.
just rest and chill and whatever, man. So
that's not always the best thing to do.
we know that.
We've seen teams be very cold when their starters come back after 2 weeks rest. Even though they practice, come back 2 weeks later, and now it's in that game element, that live element that you can't duplicate. And now you're starting to see errant throws by the quarterback. You're starting to see miscues happen again. And it's things don't get shaken out sometimes till half, sometimes till the second half until they start to figure things out. So that's not always a good thing. We've seen that happen before where you rest guys a little too early. And I understand it's for health purposes. You don't want them injured, but it's also a risk too.
Absolutely, Joe. Absolutely. We've seen it come down to bite people. That's why I said even those lower tier teams going in, Buffalo goes in, without that rest, they could be the team right now to beat, because they got it rolling.
Right.
So let's switch to the NFC. We already know about clinching the San Francisco 49ers again. They've got the title, the
Locked
number 1
in.
seed. They're probably going to rest everybody too. Lions, they got robbed of a win last week against the Dallas Cowboys, and there they are. These teams are all in the playoffs, so they don't have to worry about a thing. So those guys are sitting back, sitting pretty. Even the Philadelphia Eagles are right here, have a playoff berth. The Rams,
amazingly
surprising team here for me to get in there. Now, the sneaky thing with some of these other teams, Atlanta clinches the NFC South Division title with a win and a Tampa Bay loss. Who is
Tampa's playing Carolina.
Tampa's playing Carolina. Well, I don't see that happening. But we
happen.
saw Tampa Bay losing or winning last week, and they let us down too. What the hell was that? All of a sudden, pulled the trigger. They were like one of our teams that we thought were contenders, and they looked at turn out and said, "No, guys, we're pretenders."
And that's the thing, right? Last week, if they win, it's pretty much locked up.
It's locked in.
You don't have to worry about it. But
Mike Tackett's got a comment here, Joe. What is he saying?
He says, "Tell me how a 9-win Jacksonville team is better than a 10-win Buffalo team. They're not. But Jacksonville may win their division, and Buffalo could get left out."
This
goes right to his point about take the best 8 for each conference and let them play in the playoffs in terms of record, not because you win a division, but in terms of record. I like the idea, Mike. I agree with you, but at the same point in time, I definitely don't see the NFL going for it or even changing it like something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying too, because I'm a big old-fashioned guy here too, with keeping it the way it is because of divisions. But if you're thinking of it that way though too, with the wins, I mean, I can get that too.
It makes
so
sense.
Maybe that would even give people a little more momentum here to try to not just win the division, but do it, strongly, get in there and really put your foot down on it too. Or maybe have a clause that if you do have, a certain amount of wins or under, because the way the league is now, you can't go 500. You've got to go above or you're below. If you're below, then you're definitely out. You know what I mean? There is no shot, no matter what you are. You know what I mean? Or depending, if the whole NFC is, absolutely horrible, and then it all happens to be, I guess, below 500, which we've kind of seen at times. But, but yeah, I mean, something like that, clauses like that, to where yes, they make it's an achievement that they won their division. They get that title for winning the division, and their little trophy for that. But yeah, to go for the playoffs and the further, something bigger, absolutely. All right, so next, when we're talking about Atlanta, yeah, they got to do that. But then the Dallas Cowboys here, they're going to be playing at Washington. Dallas clinches the NFC East title with a win, or the Dallas tie and the Philadelphia tie, or a Philadelphia loss. So Philadelphia needs to win here to lock in that spot here, or else Dallas can come in there and clean it up, because they also have the victory on them, which was the tiebreaker, Joe.
Yeah, and Philly happens to play the Giants this week. The
Should
Eagles
be locked in.
The Eagles. Here's the thing: nothing's
But
locked
who knows,
in.
though?
But what I'll say
about last week with the Cardinals, Joe.
Yeah,
I said it was gonna be a tough game, but
we did call it. But the thing is this is a game where I feel like the Eagles now have to wake up. Yeah. Like you can't kind of walk through the game. You can't just kind of take everything for granted and say, oh, we'll probably still win because it's the Giants. Because we know when teams sleepwalk into games that they get surprised, they get punched in the mouth, and then next thing that you know, they're looking up at the scoreboard and they're down by 2 scores.
Yeah, they hit the snooze button one too many times.
Right. So Philly has to take care of business right from kickoff against the Giants and just make sure there's no possible way the Giants can come back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, put it down on them. Yes, Tyrod Taylor is playing for him, but again, Tyrod Taylor is what he is. I mean, the Giants, they're already talking about trying to lock in Saquon Barkley long term, so they've already moved on to the next.
The other thing too is with Dallas,
so.
Playing Washington. Look at what Washington was able to do last week.
Yeah,
they were pretty competitive.
Yeah, they were getting hammered a bit early, but then they were able to bring it back.
Washington kind of really stayed with the Niners.
Brissett in that game, though. They stuck with Howell again. They went back to Howell.
Yeah, last second change. Brissett ended up getting injured in practice. And right before, they were ready to go, the day before, whatever, like a walkthrough or something like that. Yeah. And Brissett got injured. Right. So Sam Howell, here comes Sam Howell. But here's the thing: is what we noticed from Sam Howell is after the announcement, and then all of a sudden, okay, we were just kidding. You got to start. Brissett's hurt. It lit a fire under him. You saw him play a little bit better. I'm not saying he came in and just was dicing it up, but he played a little bit better to the point where it gave Washington some chances to kind of keep that game close for a little bit. So Washington, surprisingly, for a little bit there, that was able to kind of compete and stay right with one of the better teams in football. So Washington could play spoiler now. They're playing a divisional opponent in Dallas where, who knows, maybe, just maybe, they're going to pull out all the stops and try to do whatever they can to try to beat the Cowboys.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, look at the way Sam Howell was last week, even too. Almost had another pick six if the defender did decide to go down and take a knee. Well, look at that offensive line, though.
Yeah, I know.
And look at that defensive line of the Cowboys and how many turnovers they get in interceptions.
You can't predict games, dude. We've seen so many upsets this year.
We do a pretty good job, though, Joe.
We do. But I'm just saying, there's games that threw us for a loop this year where we're there's no freaking way this team loses, or there's no way this team ends up winning because of who they were facing, and it happened throughout this year. And the parity in this league is so close right now. And it just when you start to overlook a team, I honestly overlooked my own Raiders against Kansas City. In Kansas City, I'm there's no way we win this game. And they did. Can you make sense of it? No, probably not. Like
one team was
that's what I
prepared and
mean.
the other team was not. There
You
go.
could say that every week,
That's what I'm
though.
saying. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about every
But
team
we're talking about
every
upsets.
week. Yeah,
It's
because that's
like-
what I mean. What team that should win, they maybe just were breezing through it. They were not prepared, and they just didn't get it done. You know what I mean? Just underestimating their opponent. Let's talk about the team that Green Bay Packers here, that Mike Tackett really cares about, and I'm sure he's hoping to get in here to get a playoff berth, and they get to play a rival here in Chicago this week. They're sitting there at 8-8. They're on the cusp. They can clinch a playoff berth with a win or a Green Bay tie, Seattle loss or a tie, and a New Orleans loss or a tie. I'm not going to go through all these, though. There's a lot of stuff that needs to happen here if they don't win.
There's a lot of help.
If they
Need
tie.
a lot of help.
So they need to at least tie and all these go through here. Which Chicago, I think they should be able to win. So I think they're going to get in. I think Green Bay is going to win and get in. We talked about them making the playoffs last week. Again, they weren't a contender, I think, for me. I think they're a playoff team that, plays well enough to get in there, at least for a contender for a championship. I don't think so. They're not there yet, but they've got the defense, and Jordan Love at times looks really good, and they're building something, I think, there. And they've got some great running backs here as long as they stay healthy. They should win against Chicago here and not go through this whole crazy scenario.
Oh, you poked the bear.
What did he say? He's like, no,
So
it's
to speak.
terrible. They're
Mike-
trash.
Mike
Let's
Tackett
just
said,
lose.
Mike Tackett said, win and we're in. Fuck the Bears.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
So
Spoken like a true
that's
Packers
That's
fan.
all you had to say, right? Yeah, win and you're in, and that's it. So who cares about the rest? The Vikings, again, a lot of stuff's got to go down. So Vikings, their hurrah
not.
was last week. That's why we saw Kirk Cousins up in the rafters blowing the horn with his shirt off in the chains. That was them trying to get that emotional push for the playoffs.
And even
they can't.
let's just say,
They
even,
can't. They're
even-
bouncing back and forth between quarterbacks, too, to try and see
all
what
I would
they
say
got.
is even
It's
if the Vikings were able to make the
just
playoffs, they are not prepared to do anything in the playoffs.
No.
They don't have Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you lost Kirk Cousins, you lost your mojo on the offense, and your defense can't feed off of the energy with the offense scoring points because there is none now. You don't have Kirk, and that was your guy to get you. And honestly, they probably would have won the division hands down with Kirk healthy and all that. But sadly, he's injured. He's out. The Vikings have struggled since. They've tried going as far as trading for Dobbs, Josh Dobbs, bringing him in. Looked okay the first game, and then after that, not so good after, the rest of the way until they decided to put in now Nick Mullins. And Nick Mullins is even worse. So not too much of a chance.
The rookie, I think, was worse than Mullins, but he's a rookie, though. What do you want? So it is what it is, But Mullins, that's why he's bounced around through different teams, But this team again, they're likely not going to make it. And in the rest of the scenarios we got for the NFC, it's highly unlikely that the Saints probably aren't going to get in because they need a lot to happen. Tampa Bay wins and they're in. So I think that's the main teams here. Everybody else is just kind of to us at this point. Mike Tackett, what does he say here? He says the Vikings had the biggest collapse late this year. No, I don't think they had the biggest collapse. They got no quarterback, and it is what it is, and you had Justin Jefferson, your best player, out for a little bit. He's back now playing a little bit with them. But the worst collapse, I would have to say, is, again, the Philadelphia Eagles. You had everything in the palm of your hand. You weren't playing your best football. You're still winning. You just needed to play a little bit better and dominate the rest of the way out against some of these teams that you should have, and you lay an egg. Multiple weeks in a row. Lose, 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 lose. That is a collapse. Right, Joe?
Yeah, sure.
There you go. Absolutely. So let's go right into our picks then. Joe, here we go. That was our playoff look at. And now we've got the actual teams that are going to play here, and the scenarios are all slayed out for us. Saturday night games, we no longer have Monday Night Football or Thursday. Saturday night, or Saturday during the day here at 4:30, then at 8:15, we've got Pittsburgh and Baltimore, then Houston and the Indianapolis Colts. All right, I guess I'll go first. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore, again, they are resting guys. Pittsburgh, that would be good for them. We'll get Mason Rudolph, though, in like a newly reformed Mason Rudolph. Seems like he's found Christ and everything, and now he's changed himself. A lot like Geno Smith a little bit, I guess. But it's going to be a tough battle against Baltimore, and it's perfect for them that they are starting, in resting guys. So starting a lot of their backups. So, but it's still a tough place to play here in Baltimore, and these two teams when they play, it's going to be nasty, but I think a lot of the defensive players are still going to be in this game, though. So that's going to be a big factor because that's the only thing here is these two teams on defense. But I think I'm still going to roll with Baltimore. I don't think Baltimore is going to exactly lay down and let Pittsburgh sneak into this one here, even though the Mason Rudolph thing is a nice story for everybody.
I don't think sneak in and get a win is the right terminology, but, I mean, Pittsburgh is trying to do everything they can in the last few weeks to try to have a shot.
Something, yeah.
It still doesn't mean that they're in.
They're in, yeah.
So Baltimore, though, even with Tyler Huntley, like as a starter, we've seen him sparingly before with Lamar Jackson out, and has able to run the offense pretty well.
Yeah.
As far as the defensive side, there's no indication on who they might rest or if they will at all. But again, playoffs are around the corner. You're the number 1 seed. You really don't need this game. So if I'm them, I'm resting all my big-time starters. All my big-time starters. I don't care. I'll give this game up if I have to, but I'm resting all my big-name starters. But for Baltimore, you know how they play. They're a very physical defense. And even if, let's say, they're like, we'll even say 6 out of their 11 on defense are backups, I still think that they have that same tenacity. They still are very physical. And then offensively, I still think Tyler Huntley can run this offense pretty well. I got Baltimore as well.
All right. Greg says that he thinks Steelers are going to take it, even though he says that he doesn't want to see it as a Bills fan. Highly likely. Highly likely that they will. But again, I think Baltimore's so good, all around. But I think some of their starters, especially like I said on defense, are going to start most of the game. And get the tempo going for everybody, and they have enough talent. I think that could still beat Pittsburgh, and for Pittsburgh to highly unlikely make it into the playoffs. Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts. I've been misreading all season, man. Whenever I think I'm in on him, I change my mind, and then they keep winning, losing, whatever. I didn't go for them last week. I didn't think they had enough to do it, and there you go. They kicked me in the nuts one more time. They play at home, but Houston again. I think Houston's a really bright team, and I think I'm going to roll with the hot hand here in these guys because I'm still not sure about the Indianapolis Colts here. I think they're still kind of suspect, and I don't trust them enough. I'm going to go with the hot Houston Texans here.
Yeah, Houston Texans, I've been rolling with them all season long, and now that they have C.J. Stroud back, I got all the confidence in the world. Houston all the way.
All right, next now we've got Sunday's slate, some games. Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati, they've been playing tough with their backup and stuff, but it is what it is, and they are what they are at this point, That being said, though, even though they have the backup here in Cincinnati, it's going to be tough to play in the jungle there. Cleveland, though, with the way they're looking offensively with Joe Flacco and stuff, and him now getting all those bonuses, so he's made himself some good money this season in that defense. I like the Cleveland Browns in this one.
Yeah, he ended up getting $300,000.
Hey, better than sitting on the couch and not getting nothing, man.
That's true.
Nice.
That is really
a
true.
chunk of change, man. It's less than they're paying Deshaun Watson too. And what's Deshaun Watson doing? He's sitting on the couch.
True, very true. I'm going to say this is going to be a very tough game for both. It's probably going to be really close. Ends up with a field goal for a win. I'm going to go with Cleveland in this one. I like their defense, and I feel like it's just going to stay close. Go Jeff Driscoll.
Yeah, there you go. All right, now the Cleveland Browns, we already picked them. The Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions, I think they're angry. They're mad. They're still going to be hungry in this one again.
They got
Dan
hosed.
Campbell. Yeah, I think they're going to come
hosed.
fiery on this one. Minnesota, they're struggling. Like I said, they're trying out different pairs of quarterbacks. You know what I mean? Like they're trying out different pairs of socks. And they look like they are just about like a beat-up sweat sock here, the way they're playing. It's sad for the defense because the defense, I think, has played really well all season. But I like the Detroit Lions in this one. Mike Tackett, what does he got?
He said, how far can Cleveland go with a rested, experienced quarterback who is peaking at the right time?
I think they could go far. We talked about it last week, and I think they really are a true contender. They are another sneaky team on the AFC side. You know what I mean? And a team that I wouldn't mind seeing go far. If I saw Cleveland make it to the AFC Championship game, I'm rooting for him, man. I think that's cool as hell. You know, the whole story with Joe Flacco and everybody, but even the team and how they're built for him just because of injuries and things like that, and poor Nick Chubb to go down and not make it, you know, because of that, with that defense that they have. And Jim Schwartz, I'm surprised that after this season, people don't start knocking on his door for another head coaching job, possibly even too, to try and bring him back. You know, I don't think he should.
Yeah.
Because he didn't do very well at that point. But stick with defensive coordinator, what you know. If they could do that and lock it in for this Cleveland Browns team, that could be real nice for a few couple seasons here.
Yeah, I mean, the Cleveland Browns, they're built for this now. Like, the only thing that they were missing, obviously, was when Deshaun Watson went down and they were like, oh, well, he's definitely done now. He's done for the year. You could, if you were a Browns fan, your heart sunk because you're like, oh, man, we have this team. We're looked to be doing great on defense. Our offense was starting to click when Watson was healthy. Now what do we do? Well, the funny thing is that Cleveland signed Joe Flacco off the couch, and another team that needed a quarterback, the Jets, played with the idea, but never pulled the trigger on signing Flacco. Cleveland does, and Flacco not only comes in, learns the offense relatively quickly, but also it's almost like he was always the starter for this team. The chemistry that kind of rapidly, came together for the receivers and Flacco himself. He's been able to take this offense and put it back on the tracks, and now let's full speed ahead. Let's go. Let's see what we can do. Flacco's been diming it up all over the football field to different receivers, and we finally are seeing, for the first time in his career, David Njoku be utilized like he should be. Very dynamic tight end, as now they're utilizing his size and speed, and he's creating problems for defenses. So Flacco, healthy with this team, sky's the limit right now. Like, as long as they can continue to protect Flacco and give him time, this team is going to be a very difficult team to out in the playoffs. So that all being said, back to Detroit and Minnesota. So the Vikings, I'm not happy with where their offense is. They're playing with a third-string quarterback, and I heard that, I could be wrong, but I did hear that Jaren Hall might get the start this week, where Jaren Hall is going to start. They want to see what they have in the kid, and he's still a rookie, not a whole lot of playing time, so obviously he's going to struggle from time to time, but maybe Minnesota can find something that they like in one game. I don't know. But the Lions, again, royally got screwed last week. The players, and we saw the video. I sent you a link. I don't know if you looked at it, but 3 offensive linemen for the Lions all walked up to the head ref.
Yes.
And reported. Now, the ref, if you listen to what he said, oh, no, Taylor Decker didn't report. Skipper reported.
He wasn't even over there, really.
No,
at the
all 3 of them were.
He barely got there, though. He was the last one to get there.
He was the last one to get there.
Second.
But what I think that is 3 offensive linemen moved up and not just one. So, because if one went by himself, it's kind of an indicator like, oh, watch for him. He might be going out for a pass. But all 3 of them went up. Obviously, Skipper came up at the very last second. But Decker looks like he, in fact, reported. And then in the postgame, they asked him in his interview. And he's like, well, I did what I was told. I reported. I did what I was told. And then he didn't, and you could tell, like, in his wording and the way he was trying to paraphrase everything, was he didn't want to get in trouble with the league and get fined for bashing the refs and this and that other thing, because that's a big thing now. So he's very careful with his words, but we all know we've seen the evidence now. We've seen how irate Dan Campbell was. He literally wanted to rip apart that referee in half, and for the whole organization to be as irate as they were and the players as mad as they were, there's no doubt in my mind he definitely reported. The NFL, because, mind you, I looked this up. Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the league, has the right to trump that call. He has the right to call down to that game and say, hey, listen, we need to reevaluate that. So my thing is, I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if Goodell said, let it go. We want Cowboys to win. It's a possibility. We don't know that that Goodell might have stepped in and said, "Oh, hey, we can't have the Cowboys lose on this special night. Jimmy Johnson getting entered into the Ring of Honor for the Dallas Cowboys. We can't upset our chairman Jerry Jones."
Oh my God! Who
You know?
the hell cares?
So what gives there? So that's where you start to see things like this happen to teams, and it's very discouraging for fans out there that know what the right thing was to do, and they just simply didn't. But
well, it's bad even for this season to where I think more than ever, so many people really pointing a finger at the NFL and saying how rigged it is, especially even with the sports betting stuff. They're looking bad right now for everything.
So here's the thing. Can't rig with the players. Players
I
are
know,
always
yeah,
going
I
to
get
play to
that.
win.
Mhm.
So it can't be completely rigged. Now, the refs are the only thing, they're the entity because the NFL is listed not as a sport business. They are listed as a entertainment business. And with that wording, it changes things. Because WWE, the Wrestling Federation, is an entertainment business. They're there for entertainment. So now that the wording officially is that they're an entertainment business, not a sport, maybe they are tweaking the officials. But that's all they can really do. They can make some bad calls happen. They can maybe say, don't call that. But that's it. So if the NFL is, in fact, doing that because they favor the Cowboys with their special night or whatever, that's wrong, first of all. We all know that. But at the same time, that's the maximum they can do is they can dictate some calls with the referees. So, and we've seen how many games that we've seen called so one-sided, and then that team that had all those penalties still ended up winning. It must have really pissed off the NFL.
Yeah, right.
You know, so that all being said, let's get back to the task at hand. We're with Detroit. I got Detroit all day long against Minnesota. I don't think it's even close. I think they come out with a vengeance, just like you were saying, Jim, and they're going to pour it on. Now, not just we're going to win by 3 scores. I feel like Detroit is not going to let up and try to make a statement to the NFL.
Yeah, like Greg said the same thing. He's going to be biting off kneecaps after getting knocked down and standing back up for the win. Here we go. And then Mike Tackett, what does he say?
Yeah, Mike, I mean,
Full-time employees?
This is the thing is that we've been pounding the table for this to happen. And it happened in a brief second until the NFL got rid of it. But refs should be full-time employees and not just doing this as a part-time gig from their corporate Monday through Friday job. Absolutely correct, Mike. We've been preaching that on this show for years now, where I don't know if anybody knows this, but the NFL is the only sport in America that in the NFL has part-time refs. Everybody else has full-time refs. College football, hockey, MLB, NBA, they're all full-time referees. The NFL is the only one that has part-time guys. And that's the problem. That's why you see some of these calls that are gray areas like pass interference and, you know what I mean, like offsides even sometimes is kind of judgmental. Like all these different calls that are being called, you're dealing with part-time referees, guys that are like teachers during the week. And then on Sunday, they put on a striped outfit and say, I throw yellow flags. Like, are you kidding me? No, we want full-time paid employees that are going to be there even in the off season, going back through the last season's calls, like all the close ones, and saying, how do we call this? How do we call that as a unit? And that way, over time, it can be a little bit more cohesive and a little bit, every call can be called pretty much the same.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. We all agree on this one, saying it for a very long time. All right, the Jacksonville Jaguars here and the Tennessee Titans again. Titans really want to play spoiler on this one. I would not be surprised if they do it here.
Right.
I would say if they are looking to start Trevor Lawrence, I say Trevor Lawrence is in. I go with Jacksonville. But it's going to be a tough game. Tennessee is going to come at them with everything that they can, especially, well, it depends on how injured Will Levis is, because we got to see Tannehill coming in to get in the game last week after the leg injury with Levis. Still wasn't really able to do a whole lot, I guess. But the original starter back, with the team. So what can that do to generate this team? You know what I mean? Playing at home. I think they'll play tough. But I think as long as it's not C.J. Beathard, I think we got the Jacksonville Jaguars in this one.
Yeah, it's interesting too, is because Will Levis right now on the injury report, he's got a foot issue, right? That's the problem. He did not practice today, But that could change. Like, obviously, they're trying to rest him as much as they can, and Will Levis most likely will be the starter. For Jacksonville, though, this is that tough point for Jacksonville. They know they got to get this win. They know they got to lock it up. I think they take care of business, but I really do think if Trevor Lawrence does go down, that opens up a huge window for Tennessee Titans to come back and win the game. Tennessee, I think all they got to do is weather the storm in the very beginning, because it's going to be a little chaotic. Jacksonville's going to look to get up early and keep pushing forward. The Titans, if they can manage to keep it close in the first half and then going into the second half, I feel like they can gain momentum and maybe steal this game away.
All right, here Mike Tackett says also, I'd like to see a change in the draft process too, to where a prospect has until after the combine to decide. He's brought this up last week or so, like that, to return to school or not.
No.
Just like college basketball and the NBA does. I don't like it for NFL at all either. I think NBA is different. You get, 2 draft picks or something like that too? I mean,
you get a first round and second round.
That's it. So, I mean, that makes it a little easier to if one person backs out, you got these other prospects you can look at and do. I think when you got so many guys on your roster to fill. I mean, how many guys fill, you got 12 men completely on an NFL or on an NBA team. Nothing near to what an NFL roster is. So I think you need those spots and those key spots early on to be that guy you've been looking at. You know what I mean?
The capacity of the NFL, for each team is just greater. Like you have 53 men on a roster. There's a lot that can go wrong, and we've seen how difficult this game is, how physically it beats up players, week to week. And some guys only last 3 years. Some guys don't make the team. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of variables that happen with the NFL, and as physical of a sport as it is, where I think it's not fair if you have, because there are rules set in place, and unless you're going to blow up the whole enchilada with all the rules that they have in place for these college students, the college students by a certain date have to decide whether they're going to come back to school or whether they're going to go for the draft. There's a whole reason why they do that. And there's a prerequisite that you have to have 3 years outside of high school before you can be eligible for the draft. And if you're a prospect and a student athlete that says, oh, you know what? I'm going to hold off until after the combine, where everybody gets a look at you, where everybody gets your measurements, and they've already done a lot of homework on you. Now they're trying to interview you, they're trying to get to know you, and then all of a sudden you pull out last second, and you're like, no, I'm done. And
he starts to come, and then he pulls out.
Everybody that decides that they were honed in on this player or players, and now they all got to scrap it. They all got to throw that player away, get them off the draft board. We got to start over. How many players is that going to happen with? Like that's the thing, is your talent pool can dramatically drop if, let's just say, 20 high-end guys decide to not go to the draft. All that homework that was done is all for nothing. So I feel like I understand what you're saying, because it's similar to college basketball and the NBA, what they do, but that works for them. I don't think this would work for the NFL. I don't think it would work for the amount of players that play all these different positions and that in the talent group to kind of be thinned out. If they decide to just not go out all of a sudden. It just kind of disrupts everything that they were working towards for the draft.
I think Mike is very pro player, though, with a lot of different things, though, too, and his points of view, though, too. Because I think this move is very pro player. The transfer portal.
Well, any move for the player where they get to dictate what they want to do.
But it just seems like that's where he is on this. I'm on the opposite side. I mean, if you look at it for me, I'm a fan of the Giants. I try to get them to draft, or would like them to draft, well, or do whatever they can. Whatever players roll through there, I'm still a Giants fan. I might have liked that player when he was there. Osi Manuro, whatever, behind me and things like that. Might have moved on to a different team. I'm still just a Giants fan. I might have liked the player, but I'm not going to follow him wherever I go and be that fan of that player. Mm-hmm. Michigan Wolverines, I'll always be a Michigan Wolverines fan. Mm-hmm. Whatever players come and go and out of there and transfer to another thing, I could really care less because I'm still just going to follow Michigan. And whatever is best for Michigan is what I'll go with. And so if it means that they need to not, wait on a player because if they want to wait until after the combine, that hinders my team, the New York Football Giants, maybe, and where they're going to go and what direction. I'm not for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just seems like Mike Tackett is for that, which is fine. That's your opinion too. That's fine. A lot of people, I think it's turning that way to even be more focused on pro players at this point.
I don't think it'll ever go to that.
No, I hope not either as well. All right.
I think that ruins a lot of things in terms of what they have to go through with the process of the draft and everything. Like it changes too much to the point where like everything you could put all your efforts into a few players that you're super interested in, and let's just say three of the 5 players that you were super interested in coming into the draft, where you might have an opportunity to draft them, they all just turn tail and go back to college. And you've done all this homework and you've studied them in and out, and you're like, these guys, we have to get them. And then all of a sudden 3 of them leave. That just changes your whole philosophy. It changes your whole direction. Now you got to find someone else that you're going to insert into those positions. It's too much of a circus, really.
Mm-hmm. All right, here, let's go through our picks here. We've got half of them through. Some of them should be pretty quickly here, but this Jets one is just a tough one here too. Trevor Siemian looked a little better, this week, even though again it was a disappointing loss here, and we saw coming here. But New England, did anybody get worse than Bailey? Bailey Zappi though too. I mean, what the hell? I would have rather just stuck through the Mac Jones again. He's not playing well. I get it. Mac Jones wasn't playing well. Worse than last season or whatever. But I would have stuck with him either way to see what you're doing, because this Zappi's not it. So why are you even looking at this whole thing? Why are you doing this? It's better than just trying to work, for me at least, with Mac Jones, to try and figure out what is different this year, buddy. What's going on? What is it? And let's work through this. Not let's bounce back to this guy and just be totally oblivious. It is what it is. So work with what you got here. You know what I mean? So that being said here, too, with the Jets, they're going to be all defense on this one. New England's going to be all defense on this one. So this could be tough. But I think overall, the Jets defense is really good, so they're going to definitely pick off Zappi a few different times. But I think I'm going to roll with New England just because at home they do play a little better. And I'm just not sold on Simeon that he's going to even do something for this team here, those two. I think I'm going to side on the air of caution and go with the Patriots on this one.
I don't think
if that even is.
I don't think there's a side
That's
to
tough.
err on this game.
This one sucks.
This one is just, it's what defense outplays what defense. I don't think it's going to be an offensive thing.
Jets win. Zappi will get picked off at least once by Sauce. So it could be, like I said, that defense is going to get more points for them and stuff, but I don't know. I will say,
people kind of overlooking the Patriots as a team because of their lack of offense or whatever, but their defense is one of the best defenses in the league. So just like how good the Jets are, the Patriots are equally as good. I like what both defenses have to offer, but offensively, it's like really you're grasping at straws here. Who can put up points as an offense? I don't know. I'm gonna go the opposite way. I'm gonna go with the Jets just because I think their D line is going to come to play, and they're just going to be after the quarterback all day long.
We'll see. Who knows? Zeke has been playing a lot better now, too, that he's got more of an active role here because of injuries and stuff. So
against not top 10 defenses. Yeah. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. Next, we got the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints. This one is a pain in the dick.
This is another one.
These guys, I hate both these teams because I get them wrong every single time. So one of them, who knows? I'm going to get it wrong, and they're going to bite me in the ass. Then which one will it be? Which one will it be? How about New Orleans? Let's roll the dice here. Bang. I hate Atlanta. I think they suck. So I'm just going to throw my pen.
Everything.
And I'm going to go with New Orleans. They played better again. Just, goddamn it, just keep it consistent and we'll get a few in a row. New Orleans.
Guess what's going to hold you back on that is the offensive coordinator for the Saints. He's the one that's been kind of holding this whole team back.
Got my pen.
Not going to really be able to do much on offense because you have your own coach that's working against you. For Atlanta, as bad as they've been, they've surprised us sometimes, and then sometimes it's like they don't do anything. They don't do anything right. And really, you have to point the finger at their coordinator, Arthur Smith. Hello? How is this guy going to stay as a head coach? We've heard reports out of Atlanta right now that
is one big pile
his job is technically safe. Are you kidding me? Have you seen what we've seen all year long? I don't know. Atlanta, they are in a absolute downward spiral because they still have Arthur Smith on their payroll. That guy needs to be fired in the offseason. Wait till this game's over with, and then you can pull the trigger. But, geez, I'm crow. Like, I can't stand it. I'm going to pick New Orleans, too, as well.
All right, here we go.
Because I have a little bit more faith in the Saints players than I do Atlanta's offense.
Yeah, that was funny because that started off looked like you were going to go all Atlanta because you're like New Orleans, their offensive coordinator, and then it just turned into an Arthur Smith
I like to do that. I like to lead you down the road and then just pull you back.
Awesome. All right, here we go. Next, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Carolina Panthers.
Can we say it together?
The Bucks.
Can we just say the Bucks?
Yeah, we just say the Bucks.
1, 2, 3.
Let's hope.
Bucks.
The Bucks. All right, here we go. If they can here. What was last week, man? That was just a complete, utter disaster. Get it together.
Offense.
Yeah.
No team chemistry,
and
nothing.
The team even gave him a shot,
terrible.
so many shots.
And no defense.
Yeah.
What happened to the Buccaneers defense?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what is happening
Who knows?
right
Maybe
now?
we will see a Todd Bowles firing at the end of the season.
Oh, please.
All right, next we've got the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. It's funny how
I don't like this game either.
Yeah, but there are already talks of how much will a trade Chicago get or a trade here, and yes, they play tough. Green Bay though at home is tough to play, just like as if it was in Chicago. I would probably say the Chicago Bears in this one, but seeing as though it is at home, I think they just play better, and I think the Green Bay Packers can get it done here, and Green Bay is there. Greg Schneider, he's right there. Greg Schreiner, he's there. He's on the love train. He's along with me right there, too. Bang. Choo-choo, baby. Get it going. What do you got, Joe? You got to go.
Hold on.
Did I kill you on that one?
No.
All
Hold
right.
on.
You're good.
So here's my problem with Chicago.
Okay.
Because I picked against them the last 2 weeks, and
Yes.
they proved me wrong, right?
Which worked for me.
What I'll say is they're playing Green Bay now. Yes, Green Bay plays better technically at home, but
They've got a better defense, too.
I don't know. Like this game right here can go literally either way.
It
like,
could.
The way Jordan Love plays at times, it makes you question, like, is he the guy long term? Because he shows you flashes in the pan of being that guy, the starter, definitely going to be the guy for the long haul. And then there's other games. That's why they're 8-8, is because of him. So it's like, and then you look at Chicago, where I already wrote off Chicago the rest of this season, and I'm just like, they're not going to do much. And then Fields gets healthy again, comes back, has a couple of real successful games, whether it be on the ground or throwing in the air, and it's like the team looks completely different now. It looks like the Chicago team we were hoping to see in week 1 is now here. So like with both these teams, it's like there's no clear cut no clear cut oversight of what they actually are still. They're still perplexing. They're not have any real answers. So I don't know what direction to go with these teams, honestly. So I'm going to flip the coin, and I'm going to go Green Bay just because they're home.
Okay, well there you go. It's for me, Chicago and the whole thing is really similar to. It's all on the quarterback's back. How he plays. He plays well, like you said, at times. But then you got the good with the bad. Everything generates around him. For me, in my point of view, it's very similar to Kyler Murray in the Arizona Cardinals. Whatever Kyler is able to do, he's got greatness right there at times, and the offense runs around him. If he's having a bad day, you're screwed. You know what I mean? And that's what you kind of get. And look where Arizona is right now. I mean, they're winning. They just beat the Philadelphia Eagles. But next week, Kyler Murray might just play like garbage and just lay an egg, and then it sucks. But they've gone in on him right now as their quarterback and stuff. But, they could, after it's all said and done, after that contract, they might just end up saying, well, we're ready to move on now. We're done with that. You know what I mean? And Chicago might be in the same situation in a year or so, But, all right, so that's why I think there's even trade talks right now. But we've got the Denver Broncos and the Vegas Raiders. Damn it. Freaking Raiders again, thought they were going to move together and move on and get something going here and string a few together, especially after the big point victories here. Denver, hey, they get it done a little bit here, but they're very scary. I don't think there's going to be Denver putting up a lot of points here, especially with the fact that they moved on from Russell Wilson here. So you got to say, rolling the dice in Vegas with Vegas. I'm going with the Raiders on this one, Joe.
All right. Well, I have
I'm confident, right? Is that what you're saying? I'm glad that you're confident.
I am not confident at all. Because if you've watched Aiden O'Connell perform the last couple of weeks, they haven't been able to score on offense. So, and you're playing a defense that's actually pretty good. A team that has got a little hot late in the season. And I think because of the question marks on offense, if you can't score points, I'm sorry, you're not going to win games. And I feel like that's a struggle that they still haven't figured out yet. Some people can point the finger. I know I have as the interim offensive coordinator calling some terrible plays, and he did last week against the Colts, which might have hindered Aiden O'Connell's performance. But Aiden O'Connell's his own man on the field, and you got to make plays happen. So I'm going with Denver on this one. I just can't see Vegas really doing much other than their defense.
We've seen them also. Yeah, well, sometimes that's all it takes, though. Again, I haven't been I haven't liked Aiden O'Connell, really. You know what I mean? I haven't been an opponent, but I was even thinking at this point, why not just go back and throw Jimmy G in this as long as you had a shot at the playoffs, possibly. He can't be any worse. You know
he is worse. Trust me.
I don't know. You know what I mean? At this point,
Trust me.
The way you were looking last week, so who knows?
Trust me.
But Denver not having Russell Wilson in there, I think it's going to be a bigger impact than people believe. All right, the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants here. Philadelphia should take this one. Can we say this one together too?
Hey, 1, 2, 3, Eagles.
All right, here we go. G-Men, again, last week making it close on just a few different bombs they were able to get. I think they just leave Darius Slayton by. They're kind of almost like, that retarded child that's on the team. They just let run and score a touchdown quick for you, because it's nice. It's a nice heartfelt thing.
Yeah.
It just seems like that's what they're doing with Darius Slayton sometimes. There you go.
Felt good about himself, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so next moving on to the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals. This is going to be a tough game because just like I said, even last week, with the way the Eagles play against the Cardinals, these two teams do the same thing. Some with the birds, they fight, like this, and they get angry, and then they end up being tight games here. This could be a close one. Seattle is not at home. They let us down that they did lose at home last week, so it was a tough one here. They've got a pretty good defense here, but you know what? I think I'm going to roll with the Arizona Cardinals on here. I think they're going to string a few together. I like James Conner, especially what he's been able to do, throughout the whole season. He's a sneaky guy. If you guys want to check his stats and stuff like that, he's been sneakily doing some stuff on a shitty team. But
he's always been like that.
Well, yeah, I know.
Like for this team especially,
this team especially.
Ever since he left Pittsburgh and he's been to Arizona, he's been a key cog for this offense. Like the offense, everyone kind of points fingers like, it's the quarterback. He's the reason why this offense is rolling, but not really. James Conner really kind of dictates the game and where it's going to head. When he gets the ball now, he is just as good as he ever has been. He literally drags people for an extra 3-4 yards, runs through people. Like, he is an amazing player for this offense. Kyler Murray, as great as he is on his legs, James Conner is the guy. Like, he's the guy that they kind of all jump on his back and carry us to the end zone. So Arizona, as talented as they are going to be without their left tackle, though he just tore his ACL last week. So I feel like Seattle Seahawks and their defense are going to play aggressive. They're going to try to contain Kyler Murray and do not allow him to go out and force him to throw. We've seen teams where when they bottle him up and make him throw, make him make quick decisions, that he's not 100% all there. Like you tend to see balls getting, sailed away from him. He makes bad decision, maybe rushes a judgment and throws a pick. And I cannot for the life of me, Jim, I got to tell you this. I watched Kyler Murray run around the Eagles last week, but he holds the ball out in the open. He doesn't ever tuck the ball. All you need, and it happened where he did fumble, but luckily Arizona recovered it, where his hand just got just a little tap and the ball came flying out. I think he's going to do it again. I think he'll fumble again in this game, maybe twice. I think Seattle takes advantage of that and gets a win here.
Yeah, he holds it out like this and does his whole...
All that needs to happen is they need to hit his arm. That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It drives me nuts.
Yep. No, I get you. Yeah, especially with some of those running quarterbacks. That's what ends up happening with it. They don't tuck it and run. They get kind of whoop to doop with their legs and hold
Loaf
it
of
like this.
bread.
It's
Hold
want
it
to
out
palm
there.
it. Yeah, absolutely. So here we go. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. Who even has faith in the Chargers anymore? I saw a couple of picks out there with some of these analysts out there. And
No
they were
way.
still picking
Did
the
they pick the
Chargers. They picked the
Chargers?
Chargers last week. And very few people picked the other teams. So it's kind of funny. Chargers, they're going to lose this one. Should we just say this one together too?
Let's
Joe?
say it together. 1, 2, 3. Chiefs.
Chiefs. Let's get it. Yes, sir. Lucas McKenna is in the house with us tonight.
There you go. What's going on, Lucas? Welcome to the show, bro.
Hashtag know-it-alls.
Throwing down real
My
talk.
guy throwing down real talk. Bang. That's right.
That's right.
Hell
Yeah, the Chiefs, I'm sorry. Like, that game right there, like, that should be an easy win. Kansas City should take care of business easy right from the get-go. Like, listen, they've been punched in the mouth a little bit, you know? They're looking for vengeance. They're looking to get back to themselves. This
They
is the
looked like a
perfect game to
bitch.
do it.
Yeah, they look terrible. You know what I mean? They need
Well,
to straighten their
listen,
shit
Jim.
out.
You know, we've had a different opinion than the majority out there in terms of media about the Chiefs. We don't view these Chiefs as a scary organization anymore. We've seen them be beaten by less competition this year, and for all intents purposes here, like the Raiders, for God's sakes, beat them this year, and as bad as they are. So this is not your same Chiefs. This is a very different type, and I don't know. I don't have a ton of confidence, and I don't think you do either, of them going into the playoffs and making too big of a stir up.
No, yeah, I don't think so either. Too. I mean, it's going to be very tough with some of these teams that are in there. Like, if you say, they go against Cleveland, Cleveland's got a shot easy to beat them.
Oh yeah, I think
Easy.
anybody does.
So, I mean,
yeah, definitely.
It's not the same scary Chiefs anymore, and people know that. Next, the Rams and the San Francisco 49ers here. How many people do you think San Francisco is going to rest? Because that could make a difference in this one here. Because then I would probably side with the Rams.
So I'll tell you this.
These teams end up being close anyways because they're divisional.
Well, they already came out. Two players are definitely getting rested.
players
Obviously, you could name them: Brock Purdy
Yes.
and Christian McCaffrey.
Yes.
Both getting rest.
Yep.
No doubt about it.
Debo's got to be rested now too because he got
You would
injured in the
think.
playoffs last year again.
You would
too,
think.
You want to make sure he stays healthy, and he was injured
I
during
mean,
the season.
honestly, you rest Debo, you rest Brandon Ayuk, you rest George Kittle. Like I'm saying, you rest all your best players. That's it.
Yep.
You got to do it. And
You got it locked in. I mean,
and this
you
is
got
a-
number one seed, so you got to hold this down.
Right.
Rams already in, and wherever they're going to place, who the hell cares?
Oh, so they already announced too that they're resting Stafford. He's not playing.
Oh, now that makes a difference.
They're resting
yes,
him.
Yes. Who is their backup again? I can't even recall right at this point.
I think they've had so many different quarterbacks the last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
That it's a revolving
somebody I
door.
know too, and it's just right off the top of my head too, and I can't remember. But so this is going to be a tighter game then either way. Again, I think they rest more offensive weapons than they do defense. So I think defense is going to take a stand here at first and set the tone for the game then. And seeing that both
Carson
are
Wentz.
they're in. Oh, geez.
Carson Wentz is the starter.
Ooh. Who's starting for the 49ers then? Who's their backup again?
That's messed. Former Jets quarterback, Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold. Man, we get to see a Sam
good
Darnold,
one.
Carson Wentz.
I'm telling
game.
you, I think it's going to be a
Damn,
good
dude.
matchup.
Yeah, this is going to be a good game then, I think. Then ultimately, I think I'm going to side with the San Francisco 49ers then, just because talent-wise, across the board, they're just there. You know what I mean? Especially, like I said, defense, they're better. Set the tone. I'm going to go with the 49ers. Why not?
Neither team has to win.
No, they don't.
So
they can
because
just
they're both
stay
in,
where they
it's
are.
not going to matter as much. It is in San Francisco, mind you. So there's that. They're going to have the fans on their side. But honestly, I could see this game go either way. But more times than not, we've seen Sam Darnold play, and we have confidence in Sam Darnold as a starter. So I think with him being on the Niners, which is kind of laughable as a backup, I think he's going to play well. I think that, they're not going to miss. Obviously, Purdy is better. But with Darnold there, it's almost like if they had Sam as their starter, I still feel like they would be a tough offense to deal with. So
Right.
I'm going to go with San Fran
And there's no pressure on him right now
round
then,
two.
too. And you know what? He played his best football, at least early on in
There's no
USC.
need.
You know what I
There's-
mean? In California out that way. So that could
Yeah.
be good, you know? So, all right.
Definitely.
All right. So you're going San Fran. All right. Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Commanders here. Again, I don't really see Commanders playing spoiler on here. I'm sure it sounds good. But I think right after this game, we're going to find out that Ron Rivera is fired. And they're going to be looking. And their first interview is going to be Eric Bieniemy. And Dallas is going to put the pressure on the Eagles then.
You know what's
And that's
funny
all
is
it
that 2 weeks ago they've already pretty much summed it up that
Mm-hmm.
Ron Rivera is getting fired after the year. So
It's there.
it's definitely going to happen.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see what direction Washington goes, whether it will be with Eric Bieniemy or not. Because Eric Bieniemy, what's interesting about that whole situation is that he's had several interviews before and still never landed a head coaching job. So I almost wonder, great offensive coordinator mind for him, but when it comes to a vision or to give a game plan to the organization, whatever one he goes to interview with, I feel like maybe that's where he falls short. It's like maybe he doesn't have that head coach mindset to be able to lead his vision going forward for a team.
Perhaps.
And that's probably why he hasn't landed a job yet. But maybe Washington will be the one. It'll be an easy move.
Yeah.
Like he's already there.
Everything's better right
The
there.
staff
It
will
lines
change
up.
a little bit. The staff will definitely change a little bit. I don't know if Jack Del Rio will end up being ousted too because he's the D coordinator.
He's already been fired though.
Oh yeah,
he's already
fired
been
already.
fired. Yeah,
Earlier
so
this
he's
year.
already out. But
So he's gonna
how
have
many
to-
former Chiefs personnel maybe does he try and grab? Even if he does, you know, will he
That-
bring in Matt
would-
Nagy or somebody? You know, I mean something.
No, Matt
Just
Nagy would be a
wondering.
lateral move. It wouldn't be an upgrade. So I feel like if he's going to pick any staff members off of Kansas City, it would have to all be for promotions. So that'll be interesting to watch for if he nails the job and gets it. But
Yep.
yeah, that staff will definitely change a little bit. But this game, it's like I'm going to root for Washington. I don't think they're going to end up winning. Dallas, this is a team that struggling. They're not as dominating as we've seen. Yeah, you know, they kind of got back on track recently, but this is a team that even if Dallas wins and maybe the Eagles lose or something like that, something crazy happens where Dallas locks in that division win, I think that this is a team that we need to watch for because if that offense isn't clicking, we've seen when Dak Prescott gets a lot of pressure on him where that's when the offense struggles, you know, when there's not that protection, when they're not getting being able to run the ball. A lot of pressure is on Dak, and then they kind of folded that in that way. So we'll have to keep monitoring this Cowboys team and see if they can get it all together in time.
Yeah, it was tough because in that the Detroit game, man, Detroit had them so many different times in that game,
they
man.
had it.
It was
Definitely
tough
had it.
because if they just stuck with the run again, because see, that's what I mean. You can run effectively against the Cowboys, and then there's no pass rush. Then there you go, dude. You just eliminated that pass rush because Micah Parsons is already in the backfield while your runner's
You know
already
what's
going
funny
that way.
is there was a little bit of a back and forth between Penei Sewell, the right tackle for the Lions, and Micah Parsons. And honestly, for most of that game, when I understand they were double teaming him a lot in that game, and rightfully so, but when it was just man to man, Penei Sewell was still holding his own, was still locking Micah up. So that's something else that if you are able to slow him down and get him frustrated and keep him off his game, you see how this defense is not as effective in terms of rushing the passer when that guy is held to a limited amount of pressures.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think if a team can catch them in the playoffs and run effectively and be balanced, Dallas it could be out easy just like that. All right, now this is the game we all been looking for. You know, Sunday night, right there it is. Everybody, you know, some things on here. This is big. This is big here for Buffalo in
very
general.
big.
They need to do this.
It's big for both teams,
It's
too.
tough. Yeah, well, Miami, I mean, they're already in, but if they get their division,
But if they win, they lock up the higher seed.
They got it. Yeah, that's fine. That's cool too. But Buffalo, they need this one, and they've got the momentum. Miami, they got punched in the mouth. You want to talk about last week too? I mean, Tyreek Hill, I think, even came out. He said he played his worst football game ever, and he doesn't even want that tape out there of all that and how
He
bad it
dropped
was.
the ball.
Yeah. I could see them playing
on,
better
guy.
and winning here in Miami because they do. But you know what? I'm going in on Buffalo, man. I'm rooting for them. I want Buffalo to do something here, sneak into these playoffs and be that scary team that's kind of sneaking in there. But lo and behold, they're the division leader and champion. So how about that? Get two for one. You want to see that?
One.
Yeah, that Travis Kelce commercial. There you go. 2 for 1. There you go, Joe. Take it away.
Yeah, because it's a split game. I'm gonna take Miami. I need more games back on you. How many games am I down anyway?
8.
Oh, I should be picking opposite for a lot of these.
Yeah, you get there. We're going through the playoffs. You got it.
We
Chip
never
away.
have. We never
Yeah, we
tallied
did.
it through the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have.
Then when we
When
started,
it's tight like this, we do. We do it through the whole thing, man, right to the end. Makes it better.
I don't think we
You
ever
got a
did.
shot. Yep. Okay. All right. Next, then that's it. That's the show for tonight. We dealt with some technical issues. I've done a lot more work with camera work right now because our camera died, but we made it through, Joe. We've had a couple of extra know-it-alls in the house with us tonight, some new faces and things like that.
Great.
Some Moldies out there, Mike Tackett, you guys out there, all of our OG know-it-alls. We appreciate you guys checking out the show. End of the season, guys. It's it. And then we got Wild Card Weekend.
No
This
more
is when
regular
it gets
season.
hot,
This is
and
it.
heavy and crazy, dude. We love it. We love this time of year. We hope you had a great holiday season and everything. And we hope good things for your teams moving forward in the playoffs, too. My team is already out. Joe's team is already out, too. So we're just going to be sitting back, drinking some brews or whatever and enjoying the playoffs.
Yeah, Lucas, thanks for joining the show, man. Listen, if you would
Drop the
do
dollars
us a
then, Joe.
do us a huge favor. Head over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell to let you guys know when we go live. But also, you can also follow us anywhere you get your podcasts as well. Every Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. That's where we'll be, right here with you guys, right here. Just we're right here all together.
Hashtag know-it-alls.
Yeah, tune in. Drop a comment down below for next week. Make sure you let us know anything that you want to talk about next week. It could be about your team in the playoffs. It could be about your team that's exited the playoffs, is far gone, maybe looking towards the offseason. And we can talk a little bit more about that. So tune in next Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. See you guys there.
All right. See you guys next time.
Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday nights for more football on the know with Jim and Joe.